Congress and members of NATASB. I'm your host for today, and my name is Teresa Gray. I'm a member of the Northeast Texas Association of Black School Educators. I'm a committee member for this wonderful event. Please feel free to enjoy breakfast provided by the TISD Child Nutrition Department. We'll give you a chance to get settled, grab some food, and begin. We're going to bring approximately 8:15 or so with opening remarks by our president, Mr. Lee Williams. So enjoy. I'm so glad that everyone's here. I see that our president, Mr. Williams, is here, and he'll bring the welcome and purpose to the symposium. Mr. Williams.
Oh, thank you. Good morning. Great to see everybody here today. I am Lee Williams, and I'm definitely the president of the Northeast Alliance of Black School Educators, better known as NATASB, and it's so good to be back in person. I think the last time we did this in person was probably in 2019. And so for the last couple of years, we've done it virtually, but it's good to see everybody here this morning. And so let me be the first to welcome you to our 4th annual Aspiring Administrator Symposium. And our theme this year is United in Purpose. And so I want to thank the Symposium Committee for all of their hard work and effort to put all of this together. And also to our speakers. We have several speakers that are here this morning. I talked to Dr. McLeod about 5 or 10 minutes ago, so she's excited. She'll be joining us by Zoom at around 11:30. And then also Mr. Sean Pennex will also join us by Zoom as well. So excited to hear from everybody today. And this is another opportunity for us to reaffirm our NATASB mission of enhancing and facilitating student achievement for Northeast Texas and Arkansas. And so today, and you guys have already started to do it, I see different people at different tables, but really take this time to network, have good conversation, and listen to the various different educators that we have coming from our community and from other places as well, to really, like Ms. Janelle said, I think on Wednesday, to really talk about your why, to reestablish your why and all those necessary things to be successful. And remember, we don't only have power in our story, but we have power in our NATASB values. And some of our values include continuous learning and professional development, responding to student need, strengthening our roles as key players in an effective delivery of education to all children, and also using technology to enhance our jobs, our organization, and the communities in which we serve. Shirley Chisholm once said, "Service is the rent that you pay for room on this earth." And so as educators, you know, we're always in service to other people. And today is almost like our time to refuel. If you're like Brittany, you have an electric car, so this is your time to electrically charge your car. But for the rest of us who are still using gas, this is our opportunity to definitely refuel. I should have got on that electric car thing a long time ago, so I'm kicking myself now. But I hopefully maybe will in the soon future. And the good news is, if for some people can't come today, we're definitely recording this. And so we'll get this to Chad, Richard, and then we'll get this up and we'll have it on our YouTube page so people can also go back and kind of look at it even after today. And so I also want to let everybody know I'm going to be in and out because we have SAT at TC and I'm also the coordinator for that. And so I kind of left the proctor there by themselves. So I have to kind of run in and out. So, but I also have it on my phone. So I'll be here. So anyway, I'm excited to hear everybody speak. I'm excited to have us network and all of the good things that we do in NATASB. So without any further ado, back to our host.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. As I stated earlier, my name is Teresa Gray, and I'll be your MC for today. And as we move forward through the program, we need to keep in mind our theme for today's symposium is United in Purpose. And we must ask ourselves, how do leaders bring various perspectives and backgrounds and cultural and social views together for the purpose of student success? As educators, we go above and beyond each and every day, helping our students become all that they can become. And I want you to keep in mind and understand what it is when we are united for purpose. Our purpose and our theme is to strive to do all that we can while we're here, while we have an opportunity. Our first speaker, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but our first speaker is going to be Dr. Christine Holt. She's the Chancellor of University of Arkansas, Texarkana. And Dr. Holt is going to speak to us to the theme from the aspect of higher education. How does she bring various stakeholders together for the betterment of our student success? I'm going to read her bio, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce to some and present to others Dr. Christine Holt. It says in August of 2021, Dr. Christine Holt began her appointment as the Chancellor of UAHT. In this role, she serves as the CEO of 2 campuses in Southwest Arkansas and the James Black School of Bladesmithing in historic Washington. The college offers associate degrees, certificates, continuing education, and customized industry training. From 2018 to 2021, Dr. Holt served as the Chief of Staff of the President and the Chancellor of the University of the Missouri System. And from 2019 to 2021, she was appointed the Interim Chief Diversity Officer. Before assuming the role as Chief of Staff, Dr. Holt served as the Associate Provost at Missouri University and a top-tier research, land-grant, and flagship university, where she managed and engaged in various projects, including strategic planning, accreditation, diversity faculty hiring, academic personal issues, employment discrimination, Title IX, campus safety, space utilization, and other special initiatives. Prior to coming to Missouri, Dr. Holt served as the Dean of Academic Administration at the Annandale campus of Northern Virginia Community College, or NOVA, excuse me. In this role, she oversaw strategic planning, enrollment management, space utilization, specialized degree programs, campus outreach, dual enrollment, evening administration, the adjunct office, and the Center for Academic Assistance. During her 8-year tenure at the college, she became well known as a great utility player by serving in interim positions, including Provost, Dean of Learning and Technology Resource, as well as Dean of Students. Overall, Dr. Holt has had over 25 years of experience in higher education and compulsory education. Prior to her career at NOVA, she worked as the Chief Administrator for a satellite center, and I'm probably going to mangle this, Catawba, thank you, Valley Community College in North Carolina. In addition, Dr. Holt was hired as the first career development coordinator for a newly established school to career program for K-12 students in 8 school districts, ranging from urban to suburban to rural. In Cuyahoga, yay, Valley Career Center in Northeast Ohio. Dr. Holt's knowledge and expertise extends beyond the field of education. While in Ohio, she earned a law degree and practiced in areas of family and juvenile law. For several years, Dr. Holt was employed as a guardian ad litem for children and the elderly. Dr. Holt holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from Capital University, Ohio, a master's degree in adult education from East Carolina University in North Carolina, a Juris Doctorate degree from Cleveland Marshall College of Law in Ohio, and a doctoral degree in business administration with special emphasis in leadership and management from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Once again, as I said, I will introduce to some and present to others, Dr. Christine Holt.
Good morning. As I was listening to that, I thought, gee, she can't keep a job and she's nomadic. What's wrong with her? Good morning. I am truly delighted to be here with you this morning. And I will say that when I think about the program, it used to be I was in a, I was in a leadership program a few years ago, and they would tell us to stand up, and we'd stand up, we'd introduce ourselves, we'd give our name, our position, where we were from, and this is how we would end. And we are part of the best class ever. So I want to modify that statement a little bit for today. So you've already been told I'm Christine Holt. I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the first female, African-American female chancellor in the state of Arkansas. Now you're clapping, and I'm humbled by that, but I'm also amazed and astounded by that That did not happen until last year, 2021. So there's work to do. There's work to do. And I'm hoping that I won't be the last that will start this thing moving, and that we'll have others that will come behind me. But I say that to say that what I want to say today is I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the chancellor of what I think is the best community college in the nation. Now, I will say that with a few disclaimers. That's true certainly in Arkansas, in the Southwest region, in Hope, and in Texarkana, and in historic Washington. So I can say that without hesitation or reservation and not be disparaging to any of the other institutions here represented today. So I'm glad to be here. I'm excited about your theme, United in Purpose. United in Purpose, especially when you look across the country and everything that's happening around us. I am delighted to know that you're focused on being unified and being in lockstep with each other to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to educate all of our children. And I see them as our children, our students, K-12, K-16, and beyond. So I applaud you for that. As I said, amidst all of the acrimony and strife that's happening in the country. So I want to celebrate you. I also want to take just a brief moment. I would not be doing my job as chancellor if I didn't take just a brief moment to give you my commercial for my institution. As you heard, we are a community college. We serve this region. We're one of 3 institutions in this region. We started back in 1965 as a technical or vocational school. In Hope, Arkansas is where our primary campus, our main campus is. Then back in 1991, we transferred from a vocational school and we became a technical college. Then in 1995, we joined the University of Arkansas system. And then in 2012, we added another campus. We added the Texarkana campus. So we're celebrating our 10th year anniversary here. We're truly one college, one mission, serving students, reducing barriers to provide academic quality education so that those students can go on, have social mobility, be good contributing citizens in the region. So we're really proud of that. Just a fun fact, for those of you who may not know, I mentioned the 2 campuses and you heard in the bio, we also have another small site in historic Washington. How many of you have even been to historic Washington? No, you haven't. You're missing the gym. If you have not had a chance to go, get on I-30 and get to historic Washington. Well, we also have a really fun program. It's our bladesmithing program. I don't know if any of you have watched Forged in Fire, but if you want to make a knife, and I did not realize how extravagant knives can be. You want to make a Bowie knife that can go for a really great price, selling price. I encourage you to think about the bladesmithing program in historic Washington. So as I mentioned, we're very proud to be here celebrating our 10-year anniversary in Texarkana. For any of you who drive down the I-30 corridor, and I know one person has at least seen it, we have a new building that's going up. It's our Farmers Bank and Trust Workforce Center. We're really pleased with this building. Anybody who spent any time on our Texarkana campus in the last year or so, we're bursting at the seams. So that's great. That means that there's opportunity. So we're building a new facility, and in that new facility, we'll have our Arkansas High Collegiate Academy, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. We'll also have our Secondary Career and Technical Education Center there. We'll have office spaces. We'll have a workforce industry training classrooms where we can meet the need of it, workforce and industry. And then we'll also have community education programs, everything from salsa dancing to salsa cooking to other things that you may be interested in. So as I said, we're really pleased with that new facility that's coming up, and it should be, cross your fingers, it's still not on budget. You know what happened after COVID? Unfortunately, it's not on budget, but it is on time. And we're planning to start classes this spring. So it should be done, fingers crossed, next month, and we'll have some things to do on the punch list, but we should be able to open this spring. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Collegiate Academy. It's a wonderful program. It allows students in high school to take a 3-year curriculum. So they start in 10th grade, and by the time they finish in 12th grade, they have not only their high school diploma, and in fact, they have their associate's degree first, because we have graduation first. So they will have a high school diploma in one hand, an associate's degree in the other hand. Now, for those of you who are parents, and you should be jumping up and down and help us spread the word about this. And it's at no cost. It's free to students. It's free to all of our students. And for those of you who are parents and putting students through college, you know that that is a tremendous value, a tremendous savings. In fact, when you look at the value of that in 2019 and 20, for a 2-year degree, you would pay approximately in the state of Arkansas about $4,000. If you were earning a four-year degree and you started out, it's approximately $9,000. So you can do the math relatively quickly and see that's a tremendous cost savings. In addition to cost savings, it also accelerates the time to completion, degree completion for those students, because many of whom will go on to other four-year institutions, such as TAMIT and other places. So we're really pleased with that. So that means that they can get out with a four-year degree by the time they're 20. And that's phenomenal for parents. So keep that in mind, particularly if you have any people on the Arkansas side, keep that in mind. In addition to the Collegiate Academy, we also have the Secondary Career and Technical Education Center. It almost mirrors the Collegiate Academy, but it's primarily for juniors and seniors so that they will complete collegiate college credit and even can earn a certificate or degree and then go directly to the world of work. And the good thing to note about our students who go through that program, they're 21 percentage points more likely to graduate from high school than their peers. And parents overall, we've surveyed parents and about 91% of the parents are really satisfied with what we are able to provide, because that gives their students, their children, a leg up in the world of work. So now for the commercial. Now I can say I've done my job. You can tell my president, I've done my job. Let's get to the business at hand. And that's addressing the question that was presented today. Well, before I do that, there's one other thing that I should say. So the beauty of the community college is that we serve, I used to say from the womb to the tomb. People said that was a little morbid. So I changed it a little bit. And instead of saying that, we serve from the cradle to career and leisure. We offer, as many institutions do, we offer summer youth enrichment programs for younger students. We have opportunities for older students who just are interested in learning. Those senior citizens who want to learn and come back, we encourage them to do that. So we incorporate all of that. In addition to that, we also work with business and industry, as I mentioned earlier. And over the last few years, we've had the opportunity to work with over 110 employers and help retool and refine the skills of about 4,500 employees. So we're pleased with that. And then if you ever take a trip to Hope, so don't stop in historic Washington, come to Hope as well. We have a state-of-the-art performing arts center there. And for those of you who are interested in concerts, we have concerts. Last week, we had a haunted hall with over 400 participants in one evening. So we have some really fun cultural, social enrichment activities as well. So that rounds out the commercial. So now getting back to the business at hand, and that's looking at your question. As I said, I really commend you for looking at how do you unite in purpose. So, and there's one central question that I'd like to address. And this question is, how can leaders, all of you in this room, bring factions together for one purpose? And we've already heard what that purpose is, student success. And I want to dissect this question in three elements or three parts. For those of you who may be teachers, I'm trying to have that outline so you can follow the talk. So I want to dissect it in three parts: leaders, factions, and I'm going to define factions a little differently. When I hear that word, initially I thought of something negative, something that we want to avoid, something that we want to stay away from. But I'd like to twist that a little, and that's a little tease. So when we get there, I'll tell you how I'd like to twist that. And then one purpose. What's our unified purpose? So let's start with leaders. So I want to have a conversation with you about leaders and leadership. And then I want to have a conversation about my own personal philosophy and then how I lead. So given the current labor market, from the great resignation to quiet quitting that we all may be experiencing in the workplace, I am truly ecstatic that you're here. It gives me hope to know that we have aspiring leaders, people who are interested, particularly at this juncture, when things seem to be going haywire. So I am ecstatic that you're here, because that means our future is in great hands. Now, education has changed drastically in the last couple of years, and I anticipate it will continue to change at an accelerated pace. So those of you who are going to be in leadership, you're going to face something that we've never faced before. I'm encouraged by that. And how do we get more leaders like you in this room to have that conversation? So as a precursor, let me just share what's going on in the higher education landscape in our industry. And I'll focus on the current state of leadership and grooming talent in higher ed. It was anticipated that higher ed would lose a lot of its leaders right before the Great Recession in the late 2000s, early 2000s. However, when the recession hit, many decided that they weren't ready to retire. Maybe it was financial instability, maybe it was a loss of identity and leadership, but for whatever reason, a lot of our leaders decided not to retire. Now, fast forward another 10, 12, 14, even 15, almost 15 years later, we're starting to see a boom in the baby boomers retiring. A lot of them have already retired and will continue to retire. And now Generation X is even reaching that stage where they're considering retirement. So we're going to continue to see that. And in 2008, the Census Bureau predicted or projected that about 10% or 13% was at the 65 age and would be looking at retirement. And projected out, so that was in 2008, about 13% of the population. And then if you fast forward to 2030, about 19% of the population would be at that stage looking at retirement at 65 or older. And then when you look at according to the 2017 survey, American Council on Education survey of presidents, 58% of them were age 60 or older. That's kind of old for presidents, but that's what you see. Presidents are 55 to 60 in that age range, and they stay on average about 7 years. And that's in a good year. I was at an institution where I think we were counting, we had 7 chancellors or presidents in 3 years. Now, some of them were interim, but that's a lot. So how do you groom your talent to be prepared for that? And so out of that survey of presidents in 2017, and I'm interested to see the new data, and it should be coming out soon for 2022, but about 80% of the surveyed presidents of a college system or an independent institution said that they plan to retire in the next 10 years. So we're in that gap, that 2017 to 2027, 80% of presidents were planning to retire. So in addition to impending retirements of presidents and administrative leaders, higher education needs to plan for departures in staff. As I mentioned earlier, the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, although those people don't move on, they're just there. So in some ways, I think that's worse than those people who quiet or who resign. But anyway, so when we look at those people in specialized positions, and I know this firsthand, and 2 different roles that I played. When I was Dean of Academic Administration, we had someone who just up and left. She decided that she wanted to move away. It was a very specialized position, and shame on us, we weren't grooming our talent. We weren't grooming that pipeline, so we didn't have anyone to step in the gap waiting. And unfortunately, even as my role as chancellor, and I knew even before I took the role that we had a person who was very ill. And unfortunately, she passed away this past December, almost a year ago. And we're still looking to hire that person. So by the way, this is my plug. We're looking for anyone in institutional research. We need a good institutional researcher, and we would be willing to groom and train if we get the right person with the right skill set. So I know firsthand what that looks like. We need to do a better job of grooming our talent in those types of positions. So now, higher education institutions are at a critical juncture, as I mentioned, and need to undergo an overhaul for many, many reasons in many areas. The changes will require leaders to think and lead differently. In the United States, the perception of the value of higher education has changed over time. It has eroded because of the cost. We talk about the skyrocketing cost of higher education. So I'm always thrilled when I can tell you about those programs that I mentioned earlier, about, like the Collegiate Academy, where we're really doing good, where we're containing the cost and moving people through the pipeline through higher education. But we need to do more of that, quite frankly. So we've seen the shifting costs, and as an outcome, students and families are borrowing more and unfortunately defaulting more. And in some cases, we're doing a disservice to those students because they're coming out without a degree and they have a lot of debt. So they're worse off than if they hadn't gone through at all. So that's what we're facing in higher education. And parents are demanding more, as they should, from higher education institutions, particularly from its leaders. So not only is the perception of the value of higher education has changed, but we're also looking at a declining market segment. That traditional 18 to 24-year-old market segment has declined. We're seeing fewer and fewer students coming through K-12 to come out to the other end, to higher education. So what is that going to mean? Particularly in places like the Midwest and the Northeast, we're starting to see institutions close. We're starting to see institutions merge. We also have new players in the market. So all of those things are impacting higher education. And unless there are radical changes in the industry and coming up with solutions to these challenges, these no growth or shrinkage scenarios will prevail and present some formidable challenges for us for survivability. So leadership development programs, so I'm going to bring it back now. Leadership development programs can serve as a catalyst for the needed transformation and creating new types of thinking on leadership to address the daunting challenges that face us. So that's just a glimpse of what's going on in the higher education industry. Now getting back to what does that mean for leaders and leadership? Well, I'm going to take just a little deviation yet again, but I'll come back. In my greater than 25 years of being in higher education, and for many of those years, I've been a leader. And let me just say parenthetically, being a leader is not solely by position. Not solely by position or title. You can lead from any part of the organization because you are regarded as a thought leader, and people seek out your opinion because you can influence and sway others. So I just want to reiterate that. I know you probably know that, but I want to reiterate that. And I encourage you to take time to get to know those. If you don't know those leaders who are leaders, not by title or position, I strongly encourage you to get to know those people you work with. So let me give you an example. So whenever I'm hiring, usually I'll have my assistant call, and then I'll ask, so what kind of treatment did you receive? How did they embrace you? What questions did they ask? Were they dismissive? And then when they come into the office, when the candidates come into the office, usually the first person they see is my assistant to greet them. So I want to know, what kind of exchange did you have while they were waiting? Did they acknowledge you? Did they just see you as part of the furniture? So, and I'll tell you, more times than not, my assistants have been wonderful and given me great advice on, I'm not sure about this person, or you need to know this if you're going to hire this person. So again, know who those leaders are, not by title, not by position, but by what they do for the organization. Others in types of roles like that, so you have your assistants, you have facilities folks, you have the IT personnel, those people who fix your computer. Usually I have them sitting right here with me on a day like today. If I had a PowerPoint presentation to make sure things will go well, those are the people that you need to know and treat well. So back to what this means about leadership. So let me tell you, over the span of my professional working career, my leadership style has grown and morphed. So when I first started, or about a decade ago, my leadership style evolved from point where I was more concerned about others and what they would think, and looking at, well, this person seems like a leader to me, so maybe I should pattern myself or model my leadership style after that person. Well, it changed about 10 years ago, and then I started to look at being authentic to myself. And what does that mean? To my calling and to my purpose. And as a result, whenever I make key decisions, or any decisions for that matter, I use some guiding questions. 6 guiding questions. I'll share those with you. The first one, will the decision hinder or benefit faculty, staff, students, and other stakeholders? So will it benefit the people that I serve and work with? 2, will the decision compromise my ethics, integrity, or reputation? 3, am I cultivating the talent and skill level of others to play a significant role in contributing to making decisions and or accomplishing outcomes? Oftentimes, particularly some leaders think that, if you're not present, decisions can't be made. Nothing can be further from the truth. And I think, again, this is my perspective on leadership. As leaders, you should be grooming other people in the room, because there are going to be days when you're not going to be on campus, you won't be in the office, you won't be in the building. And things still need to run and run very smoothly. So I often will tell my staff, even if I'm not in the room, if there's a fire, whatever it is, call the fire department first, handle the fire, and then let me know afterwards. And we can talk about the decisions that you make. Maybe it's not the decision that I would make, but I will ask you some key questions and we'll go through it and we'll make changes the next time. But I will commend you and applaud you for making those decisions. So grooming others. 4, am I comfortable to go against the grain and not be bound by groupthink to make a decision or to move the institution forward? Oftentimes, or sometimes, it's a little challenging when you're in a group of 5, 7, 10, and you have a thought that's a little different than others. We'll talk about diversity of thought and bringing people together. That's what I want. I want a table of people who think differently, who see the world differently, so that we can have those courageous conversations about what needs to happen to move an institution forward. So don't be afraid to speak up and speak out. You're at the table for a reason. 5, given the many competing and conflicting priorities and interests, is this the best course of action or the least harmful approach to accomplish our mission, our priorities, and our goals? In this case, student success. And at the end of the day, this rounds out everything that I've said. Can I live with myself and know that I made the best decision given the information at my disposal at that time? Because going forward, you may have additional information, but at the time, you have to make the decision. Did you make the best decision and can live with yourself? And as a leader, there's certain characteristics that I hope to exhibit or at least refine, because no one is perfect. And they are, and these may just seem very run of the mill, and I would hope all leaders would strive for these: honesty, integrity, transparency, forward thinking, calmness in the time of a storm, fair-minded, supportive, customer service oriented, adaptable, caring, and loyal. And I think even if you have people who have varying viewpoints, if you can come together with that set of common core traits that you're looking for, I think you can work through any challenges or issues or varying viewpoints. Lastly, ultimately, the best way to encapsulate my style is based on this quote: leadership is having a vision, the ingenuity to get others to follow, and at times taking a firm stance to move the institution forward to achieve excellence. So I've talked about that first element in the question: leaders, leadership, and my style of leadership. Now I want to look at factions. And I teased it up a little bit in saying that I want to look at it a little differently, because initially when I saw that, I just sat for a moment and I thought, that means divisive. That means that it's strife. I don't want to think of factions in that regard. What I'd like to do is think about it in terms of looking at individuals with diverse, varying, and sometimes competing viewpoints. Because this leads to the perfect segue to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we always want that, as I mentioned, at the table. We want those varying viewpoints. So from my perspective, as leaders, our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion must be in our fabric, must be in our DNA. And as a woman of color with a non-traditional, circuitous career path, I am a proponent of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As an institution of higher learning, our dedication to academic excellence for the public good is inseparable from our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We must assemble a leadership team that will foster and encourage diversity of viewpoints, experiences, and backgrounds so that we become more inclusive as a college, which will lead to academic success. So DEI, sometimes people think of it as race and gender, but it's more to it than that. It's differently abled. It looks at sexual orientation, mental or psychological impairments, socioeconomic status. And at the University of Missouri, I had the opportunity to spearhead our digital accessibility task force to create uniform policies for the system and to develop shared resources to make the universities more welcoming for those with disabilities. And it's important to make sure that we're looking at our institution as a whole. And we're looking at our policies, our procedures, our practices, and our protocols to make sure that they are inclusive. Similarly, we need to make sure our curriculum and pedagogical practices are inclusive and represent diverse perspectives. And quite frankly, given the prediction on what we're going to see come through our institutions, the diversity, the changing demographics that we're likely to see, we are obligated to make sure that we are prepared for those underrepresented and underserved students, particularly in higher ed, that we have not seen before. We are obligated, particularly in a public institution, to make sure that we are prepared for those types of students. I think of education in my own personal life, being a first-generation college student, as the great equalizer. It sort of levels the playing field, if you will, for many. And these are exciting times to be in higher education. Now, I say that, and then in the next breath, I'm going to say it may seem very paradoxical because of the view that I just espoused, but I do acknowledge that these are unusual times. Every facet, as I mentioned, of life has been impacted by the pandemic. In the midst of the economic uncertainty, we've had to address political, racial, social, unrest in the country. And on a personal note, in 2015-16, I was away from my home institution in Virginia, and I was in Missouri. And I was thinking that I might one day want to be a college president or senior leader, CEO. And I was very fortunate that my college president said, I'm going to give you an opportunity to learn what that's like. And aspiring leaders, go to your senior leaders and let them know what your vision is, what your goals are, so they can help you. So that not only can they get you to the table, but they can also be your sponsors, not just mentors, but sponsors. And the difference is a mentor will meet with you and provide advice and listen to you, but a sponsor will get you into those various meetings. So it was my president who said that this is a wonderful opportunity and I'm willing to put up money, show me the money, put up the money so that I can study leadership for a year with other presidents. So in 2015-16, as part of that leadership experience, I went to the University of Missouri. Now, I will tell you that I almost didn't go to the University of Missouri. I was in Virginia. And if you'll recall, around that time, the University of Virginia had a new president. They had a woman president, Terry Sullivan. And she was having some difficulty. And I thought, well, gee, if you want to be a college president, that's where you need to go. You don't need to go where things are going well, because you need to know how to work through those challenges. And she was having all kinds of challenges. She was having challenges with her board. It was an article in Rolling Stone that came out about sexual assault. And so she had a lot of varying things that were happening around her, and she had to deal with those. So I thought, well, gee, that's where I want to go. I want to go to UVA. Well, I had the opportunity to fly to Missouri and to meet with their leadership. And I thought, it's okay. But what really changed my mind was I hit it off with the provost, and she was new in that role. And she said, I think you should come here. You want to know what higher education, at that point, I had only been in the 2-year sector and wanted to know what it was like in the 4-year sector at a Research One system. So she said, come here, I'll work with you. And boy, was she right. So if you'll remember, in 2015-16 at the University of Missouri, there was a lot of unrest. And in fact, the very first day that I walked on campus and went to a cabinet meeting, I thought, gee, this is going to be a weighty issue. It was the very first cabinet meeting of the academic year, and they were talking about whether or not that they could provide insurance, health insurance for graduate students. And the graduate students left that spring thinking that they were going to have health insurance. And there had been a ruling, a new law in the Office of General Counsel, and I love attorneys, but they're very risk averse. I'm one, so I can say that. So they had an opinion that the institution wasn't going to be able to provide that, and then had to communicate that to the graduate students a couple of weeks before they were coming back. So needless to say, they were protesting. They were not in favor of this new decision. And gee, I'm just sitting as a fly on the wall, watching the leaders in that room go through, well, what are we going to do? How do we have this faction, if you will? They're protesting and we're sitting in this room. How do we make decisions? And boy, was that an eye opener to watch, and painful in some cases, to watch leaders sit around and kind of, I don't know what to do and how do we communicate? So fast forward. So that was the very first cabinet meeting. I thought that was going to be the weightiest issue. That was just the tip of the iceberg, because from there we had, and the University of Missouri, Columbia is about 2 hours from St. Louis. And if you'll remember that the prior year, that was the year of the unrest that they had in St. Louis. And so that was very interesting, because we had a lot of students who had been from the St. Louis area. And so and some even knew Michael Brown. So it was a very interesting time to be there. So the then chancellor, the leader of the institution, decided, well, I'm going to meet with these students and give them an opportunity to share their concerns in an open forum. Well, unbeknownst to the chancellor, the students turned it around and said, you know, this isn't just happening in Ferguson, 2 hours away. Let me tell you what's happening right here on the campus from our perspective as students. And so the chancellor was not prepared for that. So you have to be prepared. We're bringing together different viewpoints and different students and how they see the world. You have to be prepared and have others there to help you if you don't have that level of expertise. So turned it around and said, let me tell you, Chancellor, these are the issues that we want you to address. And so over time, the students continued to meet with the chancellor, and they became more and more discontented because they felt like the chancellor wasn't listening. He would come to meetings and would be on his phone. And they thought, oh, gee, you're texting, you're not really listening to us. So that was not good, even though he was sending out all these messages, but the nonverbals were not consistent. So you have to be congruent with your words. You have to be congruent. And the students felt that he was not being congruent. So not only was it the chancellor for the flagship, but it was the president of the system. So around homecoming, there was a parade and students stopped the car of the president and asked for the president to get out to talk with them. And guess what the president did? He didn't get out of the car. He didn't get out of the car to address the students. So the students were not happy about that. So they started to write the board of trustees, and they had demands that they wanted the chancellor gone and the president to step down as well. I was out of the country and I'm flying back in and I'm watching this unfold and I'm looking at CNN as I'm walking off the plane. It's like, I know that institution. Well, it was the University of Missouri system. And they were doing a press conference. The board decided that it was indeed time for the president to step down. And in the midst of all of this, behind the scenes, so we had the students protesting, you had a faculty member who was in mass communications, who was out there protecting the students, and the media was coming up and approaching the students, and the faculty member in mother mode, she stepped out and said, absolutely not, you're not going to touch these students. And then the legislature got a hold of this and said, what are you doing? Why are you letting those students run the campus? Who's running the campus? Where are the leaders? So a lot of things were unfolding. Graduate student went on a hunger strike to protest what was going on. Yeah, this was the clincher. The football team weighed in. Nothing really happened until the football team had weighed in. And then they had ESPN, right? So then it was a change in a complete story. So once ESPN got in, again, a lot of different things were unfolding. So that was the point where the board decided it was time to act, and they did. So let me just tell you, as a person on that campus, talk about factions. And again, I don't see them as factions. I see them as opportunities for the leadership to be in touch with what's going on the campus and bringing together those diverse perspectives to have those conversations way before any of the things that had transpired. So let me just talk about a few of the lessons that I learned through this experience. And again, I was living on campus. So many of my friends teased me that I was living on campus, and I was living, my residence hall was directly across. Here's my residence hall. Here is the Black Cultural Student Union. So directly across, the students were protesting, they were receiving hate mail, people were sending all kinds of things through social media. It was, boy, talk about to be there studying leadership. I had no idea. It was great, again, because I was not the leader in the room. We had to make the decision, but I was there to watch how things unfolded and how decisions were being made. And I'll tell you, not only can you learn when things are going well, as I said, you can also learn when things are not going well. And it was painful to watch many leaders not know what to do in those kinds of circumstances. So let me just tell you a few of the lessons that I learned. One, create those safe spaces. That's what we can do as leaders when we're bringing together those factions, if you will. Do not minimize perceived fears or concerns of marginalized groups, but help the members to address such issues in an empathetic, authentic, empathetic way, and accountable manner. I also heard some faculty and administrators saying those students are they just don't want to go to class. They just don't want to go to class rather than really listening to and hearing what those students had to say. Participate, as I said, in active and empathetic listening. Be authentic. It is critical to exercise emotional intelligence. Be open, be honest, and have the ability to make decisions based on the information, again, at hand. Realizing you may need to make some changes. Don't try to sweep things under the rug. Be forthcoming, make those changes. Assert leadership, quell fears. One of the things that I saw during this period, again, with the leaders is they were not listening and they were not in tune with the frontline workers. And the frontline workers were dealing with those students as they came in. They were coming through, they were marching through the administration building, and it was hard for people to get work done. But what I saw is the leaders were in a room trying to figure out what messaging to send out, and they weren't in tune with the people who were on the front line, who were dealing face to face with these students. So be aware of what's happening on the front line and send those messages. Reassure those that we're going to get through. Inspire people. Then allow colleagues, including other senior leaders, to get proper rest, or otherwise you will have burnout and people will become ineffective in their roles. I saw people during this time, and this went on for a period of, I would say from the beginning of October or maybe mid-October through the end of the semester. So that's an extended period of time. And people were on the front lines and they were getting exhausted. Social media, watching what's going on social media and having those anonymous sites where people would just say some vile things and people were responding. It felt like you had to respond to everything. And I could see it was taking its toll on the professionals. So be cognizant of that. Work from the premise of what's in the best interest of the institution and not about self-advancement. The best interest test will give you a test though, because there are competing and conflicting interests, but always go back to what's your core, what's your mission, what's your values, and live those. Hire and listen to competent people. Establish a rapport so that employees will provide candor. Because I would say that there were some employees, again, those who may be lower level employees that were leaders with those students who knew that this was an undercurrent on campus. And if they had been empowered to be able to share those messages with the senior leaders, I think some of that could have been avoided and redirected, if you will. Develop a written crisis management plan and don't just put it on the shelf, but actually have it, use it, test it, go through scenarios, and then incorporate succession planning. So I told you that at this time, we had both the chancellor for the institution and then the president of the system. They both stepped down at the same time. So it's like, well, who's running the ship? And no one knew. And it was painful to watch, to try to figure out, well, who's going to step up and really exert leadership. And keep it current. Make sure it's accessible and keep it current. At some point, you do need to conduct a hot wash and a debriefing session so that it's continuous. And don't blame. Do not blame. And don't become paralyzed that you can't act. And that's what I saw too in the case of many leaders. So that was just a wonderful opportunity to be there to study leadership when you have competing and conflicting views. And you saw some things that went well. Unfortunately, I saw more things that didn't go well. So I can say that it turned into a positive story after all of that, after the leaders left. And sometimes you need leaders to leave to make changes. Then the board hired a president who was hands-on, who was an academic, who understood the needs of students and was out constantly making sure that he was in touch and in tune and had other leaders, not just him, but other leaders as well, who he respected and would have interaction and keep the president informed. So I would just say other things that I learned, I actually had a chance to, as part of the ACE fellowship, you would go out and visit different presidents. So my last stop during the fellowship year was with a person who's not very far from here, Paul Quinn College, Dr. Michael Sorrell. He's one of my heroes, my mentors, if you will. And I had a chance to spend some time with him. And he gave me 4 points that helped me to unpack this situation at the University of Missouri. First, he said, the first rule of leadership is showing up and advocating for your people. That's the first thing. They need to know that you're there to support and you're in the trenches. Second thing he said, the challenge of leadership is you are always perpetually challenged. So make sure you're always sharpening yourself, making sure that you're equipped to handle those challenges. You may not know the exact challenge, but always make sure that you're thinking in that type of mode so that whatever the challenge is, you should be able to bring your A team together to talk about how to deal with those. And I love this. He paraphrased an African proverb. The story of the hunt will always favor the hunt until the tiger tells its tale. So again, you want to make sure you're in tune with what that tale is and that you're telling that story and you're not allowing others to tell that story for you. And don't just try to survive when things like this happen. Thrive, survive, be committed to systemic changes to improve the organization. So that was one of the highlights of my career. Some people would say, well, why is that? Because it seems so challenging, but that's when you really grow, when you have those opportunities and use those opportunities to grow. And then lastly, just talk and listen to those from the impacted and affected point of view, those marginalized communities in many cases. I will tell just one last story. At the University of Missouri during this time, there was another senior leader at the cabinet level, and he said, I don't know what to do. This isn't my experience. I'm a white cisgender male. I don't have that lived experience, but I want to be there. How can I support? And I simply said to him, go, be honest, sit down and have a conversation. If you're not comfortable in a group, maybe take 1 or 2 people aside and talk with them so that you can get an understanding of what is it like, and to have that dialogue always in the back of your mind when you're making decisions, so that either you bring those people to the table or you keep that in the back of your mind to help you make better informed decisions. So I'll fast forward now, but I could go on and talk about this because it was just an eye-opening experience. I could talk about it for days, but I'll fast forward now. The last thing that I wanted to address here was, how do you deal with purpose? So we've talked about leaders and leadership. We've talked about the diversity and seeking diversity and making decisions. Now let's talk about purpose. And for me, purpose is what puts fuel in your tank. Why do you get up in the morning? That's your purpose. And as an individual, you must define your purpose based on your values, your beliefs, and the non-negotiables. Those things that you say, this is the point where I'm really, this is the hill that I'm going to die on. I had a president who said that you have to think about, choose your battles wisely. You may not be able to fight against everything, but what are those key non-negotiables for you? And I tell people, for me, it's anything where, again, it's immoral, it compromises my integrity, and definitely if it's illegal, because I'm not going to prison. And so those are the things that you have to work through. And then you must find an organization with like-minded people to work with, or be prepared to stand firm and help change behavior and culture. And that takes time, especially if you're rowing against the grain. But if you're committed and you want to see change, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes it's not easy, but you have to stay the course. So what are those things for me? Students. When I first left at the University of Missouri, I was on campus first, and then I went to a system level position. And I had a colleague say to me, the one thing you're going to miss is you're not going to have that daily interaction with students. I said, you're wrong. So you're right. I'm not going to have the daily interaction, but it's important for me to have interaction with students. So one of the first things I did when I came in as chancellor, two things. I was very intentional. The role of the chancellor, I tell people, is really more outward facing. You're out with the public and external. And the role of the CAO, the chief academic officer, really is the person on campus. But I wanted to turn that on its head a little bit, because in order for me to represent the institution, I needed to know the institution. So I spent the first 3 months getting to know the institution. And getting to know the institution meant threefold: students, faculty, and staff. I made it a point as a new chancellor coming in, I met with every department. I met with, from facilities. I went out on the truck. That was the fun part. I could get in my jeans and ride on the truck and go through the campus and see what they saw on the campus. And I asked some critical questions. What are the things that we must preserve? What are the things that we want to change? What do you see? And what's your vision for the future? So I had an opportunity to do that with every unit on campus. And also as chancellor, it was important for me to get to know people, not just as employees, but I want to know you. So, hi, Betty Jo, you have 2 kids and a grandchild on the way. How's your family? And to know people by name. It's important that as I walk around campus that I know people by name. So that's how I've spent the first 3 months, getting to know the campus. So that way I can represent the campus well. So you want to make sure you have like-minded people with a common purpose, getting to know our students. I'm energized by that. I can't serve the students if I don't know who they are and what their needs are. And they're changing. So I can't assume the student of 2 years ago is the same student that we have today. So I need to always be present and know who our students are. And knowing that the work we do truly transforms lives of individuals, families, and future generations. It leads to social mobility. And I've already heard one of my favorite quotes: being of service indeed is the rent we pay for a living. It's a little different, but the same concept. I agree. So we're obligated. That means to me that we're obligated to help solve problems and give back to the community. So in a nutshell, my purpose, our purpose, and finding those like-minded individuals who have the same purpose, it all comes down to this. It's having an educated society increases our opportunity to have a prepared workforce and a thriving economy, and it can impact the quality of life. That's what it comes down. Now, I will wrap this up. As I said, I could go on for days because I really it's a small enough group. I'd love to entertain questions. But really what it comes down to me, the night that President Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater in 1865, it is rumored that he had several things with him: 2 spectacles, a lens polisher, a pocket knife, a watch fob, a handkerchief, a leather wallet containing a $5 bill, and 8 newspaper clippings. Now, he had a lot of stuff. I don't know the significance of all the things that he had with him, but in my mind, I'm speculating that I think the reason that he had those newspaper clippings is it says something to us, that we all need to be praised. In those clippings, they were praising him for his efforts. And we know that his presidency was not easy. So to have positive thoughts, positive feedback, I think that's worthwhile. So I say that to say that I am here to affirm the work that you do. And I believe in the work that you do. And I want to continue to encourage you and challenge you. So one of the books, again, being an educator, you may already have this on your reading list. It's a book that I have enjoyed tremendously. And again, it was one of my mentors who gave me this book. And I'll send you the name of the book. But what it boils down to is, as leaders, one of the things that we have to do is to help our people to receive and to become the best that they can be. So in that book, it talks about, it's called Radical Candor, by the way, I didn't give you the name. Kim Scott, if you've not read it, I encourage you to read it as leaders and managers. And what that talks about is you have to create an environment where you're fostering growth in your employees. And what it says is you have to care personally and challenge directly. And Kim tells a wonderful story about, and she worked for, I think it's Google or one of those technology companies. And what she tells the story about, she had an employee, and the employee was an employee that people liked, but he wasn't very effective in his role. And he didn't know that until the day she fired him. He said, well, I thought things were going well. People laugh at my jokes. I had no idea that you felt this way about my work performance. So she tells the story of the aha moment as a leader. She failed him because she did not have that conversation with him that she needed to, that could have changed things around. And she goes on to tell a story about herself, where she had gone and did a presentation, and she thought it went well. People were coming up to her and giving her high fives, but her boss came to her and said, I want to talk to you. And she's like, this is kind of odd. I just did a great job. She was in there. What did she want to talk to me about? So the boss took her aside and said to her, Kim, you did a great job. So she's saying what you did. Here the great things you did. Now here's how you can improve. Did you not see what I did in there? And what she said to her was, did you realize how many times you said in that presentation? She thought she was going to tell me something serious. That's what she had to say. She said, no, you said a lot throughout that presentation. She said, well, everybody says in presentations. That's not a big deal. So finally she had to say, Kim, you made yourself appear stupid. And that caught her attention. She said, well, I'm not stupid. She said, no, that's not what I said. It seemed you made yourself appear. I didn't say you were stupid, but that caught her attention. And she said, not only am I willing to help you with this so you can give better presentations, I'm willing to be your accountability partner, and I'm willing to put money so that you can get a speech coach to rectify that. So I say that to say, as leaders, that's what we should be doing. We should help our employees to continually improve. And sometimes it's difficult to have those conversations, but I think they're better received when people know that you really care about them as people, and then you're helping them to get better. So I say all that, going back to President Lincoln, I think he had all those things with him just to remind him that he was doing great work. So that's my role here today, just to remind you that you're doing great work. I'm inspired by you. I look forward to what the future holds within your organizations, and particularly within higher education and in this area. So last things, as you advance and grow in your roles as leaders, continue to be staunch advocates for assembling a diverse group with a plethora of ideas and ideals to foster the success of all students, those masterful academicians, the middle of the pack, and those marginalized students. Thank you for extending the invitation to be here with you this morning.
No, you're totally fine. You are totally fine. Guys, let's give Dr. Holt another round of applause. You were absolutely amazing. I just absolutely enjoyed that. I think one of the most profound things that struck out to me was being a leader is not always about title or position. Being a servant leader is humility, is grace, it's quiet, but you can get so many things, It struck me as profound. Thank you for sharing that. That was wonderful. But at this time, I'm going to take a few minutes before we start our second speaker. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk to you about NTASB, or the Northeast Texas Alliance of Black School Educators. It's an affiliate of Texas Alliance of Black School Educators committed to personal and professional development with a compelling spirit to give back to others. What we do in NTASB is so important because we are community oriented, and it's not just about African Americans. It embraces everyone, and that's what makes us so special, is the diversity and the different culture and how the different ideas that we use to come together as one. And our main goal, our main purpose as educators is to serve the community, is serving others. I think one of the most greatest things you can ever do in life is to serve someone else. It's not about you. It's what you can do for the greater good. And we think of ourselves as educators. We have the most important role in life. We serve everyone. There will be no doctors, no lawyers, no teachers, no dentists, no one without, because someone had to teach them. And that is the role, and we should always embrace that and celebrate what we do as educators and as leaders. I'm going to take this moment to do a little plug. If you are not a NTASB member, we have we have membership forms on the front table. Feel free to join our organization. We embrace and welcome everyone, and I'm saying thank you, Dr. Hope, because I said too many times already. But this is not my professional job, so you all bear with me. But I do want to express and expound on how NTASB has helped me as an educator, and it has given me opportunities, networking. I have gotten to meet people and experience things that I had not prior to this, and it is a wonderful organization. If you are not a member, I would suggest that and you're still on the fence about it, I would suggest you just have a conversation with someone who is a member, and they can tell you how great it is. Once again, it's a habit. Miss Rice is amazing. Miss Ingram is amazing. We serve all the members, committee members. Mr. Lee is fabulous. We just have an amazing group, and I'm so proud and so honored to be a part of it. Mr. Sean Penix is a former defensive back for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Mr. Penix graduated from the University of Arkansas in 2008 with a degree in marketing management, and has always has a competitive drive to be successful. After a few sales jobs following graduation, his first job in sports was in 2010 with the NBA G League, where he worked as an account executive for the Texas Legends, a Dallas Mavericks affiliate. In 2017, Mr. Penix became the manager of group and tour sales for Legends Hospitality at AT&T Stadium. And later in 2019, he became the director of sales, primarily focusing on driving revenue for anything group related at AT&T Stadium, such as VIP tours, tickets for third-party events, Dallas Cowboy home games, or private events within spaces of the stadium. After 11 years at AT&T Stadium, he was promoted to Legends Global Sales Corporate Team as Senior Director of Collegiate Partnerships, where he now oversees the relationships, business operations, and recruiting of 15+ collegiate brands across the United States. He currently resides in Fort Worth, Texas, with his wife of 8 years, Julianne Penix, and 3 daughters, Millie, Nava, and Nika. Sean's ultimate goal is to develop and grow his teams across the country and make a lasting impact as a young leader. Additionally, he strives to create a culture and work environment that all Legends employees and their partners can be excited to work in every day while performing at a high level. Please allow me to introduce to some and present to others Mr. Sean Penix.
How we doing? Has everybody got me now? Does that work? There we go. Thank you. I apologize for that. I promise me I'm not that virtually challenged. Just not did not expect that this morning. I thought I was just more prepared on that, so I apologize. And also apologize for not being able to be present with everybody this morning, but definitely appreciate and thank you to the NTASB group for allowing me to be a part of such what I would consider be a very important thing for me. I really want to, before and kind of jump into a few different slides here in a second, but I really want to one just express a little moment of gratitude. And I think I heard earlier mentioning my mother. Yeah, she's definitely been on me a little bit now. So as far as being a part of this, and honestly, without hesitation, I definitely wanted to be able to contribute. It was such an inspirational moment to be able to hear about servant leadership and earlier, and that really correlates to what I do every day, and then really it embodies legends and the company that I work for, and we'll get into that a little bit. And so before diving into some slides and things of that nature, I really wanted to talk a little bit about just the why am I here, right? What is the relationship outside of my wonderful mother, my father, both being educators and having an extensive background in education? How does that correlate to today? How does that correlate to this group? And what that really means is, for me, they've been servant leaders in my life, right? I'm sure that many people in this room, you have others, whether you know it or not, that are looking at you as servant leaders, as mentors in a way. And that was my parents for me. That was what really drove my household education. So much so that sports were very secondary. I think I just lucked up and was very blessed and fortunate to be involved with sports and play it. And truthfully, my mom didn't allow me to even play football until I was in 8th grade because she thought I was going to get hurt. But that was something that I wanted to pursue and be a part of. And then over time, actually had an opportunity to do that and was fortunate enough to be able to play at a pretty high level. Education for me continues to follow me, continues to be a part of who I am. And, with my, married for almost 9 years now to my beautiful wife, who also was in education for a very long time. It's something that embodies who I am as far as being able to serve as a person that thinks about education and about people first. And, it's funny, tell you a quick story. Yesterday, I was actually at my oldest daughter's parent teacher conference yesterday. Right. And we had an opportunity, and I'm sitting here and I'm trying not to be overbearing parent where I'm just like asking a ton of questions. This is truthfully like my first, she's a first grader now, my first opportunity where I'm just like, I'm seeing the results and seeing her, really be immersed in education and really, get what's happening around her, whether it's reading, math, science, those things. And I'm hearing the feedback from the teacher. And then I'm also hearing from her teacher, her name's Miss Rose, about how great of a student she is, right? And this is not a humble brag by any means. This is just one of those situations where, for me, understanding that my daughter's attachment to her teacher, how she looks up to her, how she feels when she's in her classroom, and how she wants to continue to be very much like that in moving forward. And I just had this moment of, wow, this is how I was feeling, right, when I was in school. I had a true attachment to my teachers, to the leaders that were in school, to the individuals that walk the hallways, to the administrators like yourselves that really were a voice, right? That looked like me, that made me feel very welcome. And so for this group, that is something that I want you to understand, is that you have this power in a time, even that we're in today, that students, whether they have it at home or not, when they get within your hallways, within your spaces, those are things that they look at and they hold on. And I can reference back so many times to professors and teachers and administrators that made such an impact outside of my own family. And so it was just one of those moments yesterday at the parent teacher conference. I saw it right there in my first grade daughter, how she was looking at her teacher, Miss Rose, as an inspiration already at an early age, and thinking through, and I'm sitting back thinking, wow, like down the road, that's going to be something she'll reflect back. That was the teacher that got me to be thinking differently and challenged me to continue to grow. And so was definitely, excited as a parent, because I'm looking at that and I'm trying not to be overbearing. Like, what else can she do? What else can she read or learn or know? But, I want to extend a gratitude to this room, because thank you for the inspirations that you actually provide for our students, whether you know it or not. You're inspiring them every day, because it definitely was. I'm a testament of that. As I mentioned earlier, family of educators have grown up around that. How that really applies now is as being a leader, being in the collegiate athletic space right now. It definitely allows me to lead people in a different way, coach, and then I think there's a lot of correlation that really goes into that. And so, I really think about, the time that we're in, and what we'll actually do today is kind of go through a few different things. And I apologize, I'm going to be going from a slide internally here, and again, I don't know if you're able to pull that up. What on your end of kind of my deck. If not, I'm good to go. I can continue that. But I want to start with really a situation that I think really makes a lot of sense for this group to understand. There's a quote that I think would really stick out to this group, and basically it stems from a conversation, a podcast that I was listening to a few months back from a guy that name is Simon Sinek. And if you don't know who that is, great motivational speaker, does a lot of TED Talks. Really something part of my daily walk that I listen to him pretty often throughout the week. And he quotes and it says, "When nobody gets left behind, everybody moves forward." So I'll say that one more time. When nobody gets left behind, everybody moves forward. And he actually interviewed recently a woman by the name of Luma Methla. Luma, 29 years ago, was a refugee that came to the U.S. Very little education, did not have really many resources as a refugee coming into the States. And fast forward to today, has actually opened up refugee-focused institutions in Ohio and Georgia, and with an enrollment of around 200 to 300 students per school. And the focus is truly bringing people together and now allowing them to actually, get the education that they need. And one of her mantras in her schools is just that no parent, no student, no teacher, no administrator can leave behind any student, that because everybody's success is actually up to the individuals that are there, right? And what I thought was interesting in the recent podcast that I listened to, she actually has a exercise that she does with her parents and with her students, where in individual classes at certain points, which for me, this will be very terrifying as a student, but she allows the students to go up in their class and share their midterms, their report cards, and let people know where they're struggling, right? And the purpose of that is not to push out and cause some discomfort with the student. However, it's to bring awareness to the individuals within that class, the administrators, the teachers, that this student is struggling. This is on us as a group. We need to be united to be able to lift this individual up. And so I thought that was pretty profound, that is kind of her exercise. If you go and actually look at the success rate and the graduation rate of her schools, you would see that they're in the 98th percentile of students that actually graduate and actually go to college. And I think that has to do with the fact that there is so much built around the success of a student, and everybody makes it's their purpose in order to drive that initiative forward, that it has led to the continued success of the growth of her schools. And so it's fascinating to me to see somebody really be in in that really have that much commitment level to the growth and the development of a student. And so as I think about me every day, as mentioned earlier, I work with close to 16 campuses now. Some household names you probably be very familiar with, Ohio State to Miami to San Diego State, Syracuse, and highly focused on the teams there to whether we're talking about educational purposes, how do we link things between the athletic department and the school institution itself, building new facilities, new football stadiums. Ultimately, I'm a coach. I get to inspire groups to be better than what they think they're even capable of. And so I get to enjoy that each and every day, and definitely excited that there's a lot of correlation here. And so again, just as we think about today, there's some things that I really want to task this group, right? One, just a few things that we think about the roadmap. Be open to some things that I may say, because you're going to say, Sean, like that doesn't even resonate with me, because that sounds more of a business practice versus something that is happening, in my spaces. So go with me in some of these situations. Also be present, right? And that's, I know that's very ironic. I'm talking to you virtually right now, but what I mean is be present in the fact of, here is an opportunity now where we can really come together and talk through some situations that I feel, in a world is so digitized, it allows us to really, our mind can be escaped in a lot of different ways. Let's take this moment for the time that we have to be able to really, come together on this. And even as you break out, how can we, figure out ways to continue to push forward? And if something resounding sticks out to you, write it down. I was told this a long time ago by a professor that I was not the best note taker in the world. I'll be honest with you. And it really wasn't until, I kind of saw myself kind of slipping in some different grade situations. It was like, I'm trying to, take everything in. And it was just like, as simple as writing something down and then being able to apply that is probably one of the easiest things that we can do. And, as much as we have our phones and, we try to rely on situations of like, wow, I can remember what was just said, simply writing something down, putting it where it's visible to see, and then being able to then apply that is something that I believe if we can do that today, it'll allow for a better tomorrow. So, I've heard earlier the word, and the words together, servant leadership. And I think that means so much to me, because that's really what I practice and preach each and every day in the business world. And question that I really have for the group is, are you a fire starter or are you a fire extinguisher when it comes to servant leadership? I'll say it one more time. Are you a fire starter or are you a fire extinguisher? As you kind of digest that a little bit, you probably think about, okay, a fire starter, right? A person that from a social media stance, they can, we're in a spot in the day and age where there are a lot of fire starters out there. I think we can agree with that, right? And whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, you name it, right? We can instigate, start things, and honestly not finish it, and truthfully watch the fire just grow, right? And as leaders, sometimes we see that and we're thinking, how do we put those out, right? How do we become fire extinguishers to make sure that it doesn't grow to the negative side? As a leader, you're actually meant to do both, right? There are positive ways to start a fire. So for anybody that is done been tasked with being on the grill, right? There are a couple different ways that you can start a fire there, right? You have the instant light, and you can go forward and just, here's the bag, instant, let it go, and hopefully we'll come back and everything is good to go, right? I've learned the hard way that sometimes you let it go too long, then it goes out, right? All of a sudden it's not as hot as it needs to be. It's not attended to. And then there's also the way that you can say, oh, well, it's easy. I'm just gonna light the gas fire. Here we go, right? Sometimes what happens with that is it gets too hot, right? If we don't attend it, right? If we don't understand the temperature, we're really not figuring that out. then all of a sudden it gets too hot to extinguish, and then we have to start all over. And then the last is obviously the old school, method. There is, you light the coals, put the gas on the coals, and all of a sudden you light it, you maintain it, you make sure it's warm, you kind of shuffle around the coals a little bit to make sure that it's just the right temperature that you need in order to actually, prepare yourself for a great meal, right? So that's my traditional way. I do have a gas grill at my house. Sometimes my wife will attest to this. Sometimes I get the food wrong, and I can admit that. I'm not America's top chef by any means, but I definitely understand the importance of maintaining. When I'm going to start a fire, how do I maintain that in the positive way to get the best results? And then as you go on and you think about extinguishing that, if you're maintaining those situations, are you able to extinguish it in the right way? Are you able to resolve conflict and issues that are within the workplace, within your families, within your peer groups, in the right way, in the positive way, to continue to serve, right? And so as leaders, we're actually meant to do both. We're meant to start fires, to have ideas, right? To think through. Oh, appreciate that. We're meant to actually, go through and think through these situations of how do we start a fire in a positive way for our student success, watch and maintain, right? To cultivate a true place of, okay, this is actually going in the right direction. And if there's resolving conflicts along the way, how do we actually extinguish those? How do we make sure our peer groups aren't starting fires that are gonna engulf a great situation that we're doing? And so as we think through that, it's a situation of, how do I become both? How do I put out fires when they're negative and they're not necessary? And how do I start the ones that are positive for change and continued development of our students? And so I saw you threw up the slide there just a little bit ago. That's great, because I'm operating from my phone. So if you can throw that back up, that would be more than helpful. Because I think this next slide, even from there, is going to impact this room pretty well. So I don't know if you can throw that back up. That would be great. Go back a couple. Go back one more. Okay. Can you click ahead one if you can? There we go. Now all of you are saying is, Sean, that sounds great. That I would love to start fires. I love to put them out. I love to do all those things and get momentum going, but I am exhausted. I'm tired. I do all those things. I have a family. I have all these things going on in my life, but I'm exhausted. I don't have. There's not enough time in the day to do all these things and serve everybody. And then I don't even have enough time to really even serve myself. I can't even get the daily things done. And look, I hear you. I 100% understand that. As leaders, it's tough, and as leaders, there become situations where, in order to inspire, it takes the tired. It takes the ones that are understanding that the job is not done until it's actually done. And when you think through what it means to students and the success of students, there is this armor that we wear, and we should continue to wear, that is one of protection and one of servancy, that allows you to say, okay, well, no matter if I'm tired, right? This is the parent coming out of, no matter if I'm tired, I'm still going to put in the effort, because that is the main focus that we need to be driving. So Legends, right? Give a backstory really with my company. Legends is started out as a hospitality company that really serviced two pretty small brands in sports, the Dallas Cowboys and New York Yankees. I say that jokingly, seeing how they're in the top 5 of the most profitable franchises really in the country and globally. And over time, it became this full service sports agency. Now that we really are in 120 plus venues across the country, as well as 15 overseas, that we open facilities, do food and beverage experiences, technology, and the list goes on. And so we're really more of a holistic agency. And in the earlier days, we were meant to be a company of continued growth and success, and there really wasn't an opportunity to say, hey, we're tired, right? We just had to continue to press ahead and continue to push forward. And if you click to the next slide, we were truly meant to actually be disruptors, and meant to disrupt the landscape of what was happening, disrupt the landscape of sports and entertainment, to do things differently. And as you think about servant leadership, are you a disruptor? Are you actually the disrupted? Right? There's many individuals that you may say, hey, I have this great idea. I think we should do this for our students. I think we should do this for our teams. I think we should do this for our teachers, for our parents. Those are the disruptors that see positive, that see opportunity in a time that is very turbulent in this world. And then there's also the disrupted. There's the individuals that also say, yeah, that's great, but we can't do those things. Our budget doesn't allow us to actually do that right now, but that's a great idea. Yeah, we really need to look at that next year, right? No, we can't do that for that student. That's a lost cause there. Let's keep doing what we've always done, right? There are the disruptors and there are the disrupted. And truthfully, for individuals in this room, you are meant to disrupt in a positive way. You're meant to disrupt. You are meant to challenge and to evolve. And what obviously COVID and situations that have kind of arise over recent years have caused people to evolve, have caused people to change, have caused challenges, work-life balance, and truthfully, in some situations we've evolved for good. Some situations we've evolved where we've made things even harder on ourselves, but we have been disrupted. And so thinking through those things, you are actually meant to not only disrupt, but also create a situation to where, as we are thinking through and thinking positively to serve others, that we're actually disrupting for positive and disrupting for good. And it pushes people to a different spot. And so I know that as you think through those, these questions that I've put on these slides, and whatever you identify with, let's go be disruptors, right? I challenge this group, and as that's number 3 right there on that is to be disruptors. And you may say, yeah, but there's only so much I can do, right? So much that you can do, that may be true, but that's something that you can be doing, right? There's the opposite end of, if you don't do anything, then that's what you're going to get as a result. You're going to get nothing back as well. So I challenge you to actually try to do something and come together as groups in order to formulate an opportunity to disrupt change for a positive situation moving forward. So if you hit to the next slide, I'm curious of who knows who this is. If you do, I would give you a fist bump there in the room, because this individual is very well known. And I'll kind of cut to the chase. This guy, his name is Richard Branson. And for those that don't know who Richard Branson is, he is the founder of Virgin Group. So if you're familiar with, Virgin Cruises, airlines, hotels, he has been a disruptor in the industry of hospitality, entertainment, and really created change in a lot of different ways. And he states there, successful people create change instead of being influenced by it. They don't wait around to be influenced by economic trends. They create trends and make it happen. And that's so profound to me, because as we think about education and we think about trying to push ahead and be disruptors, we're not waiting, right? In our respective institution, you shouldn't be waiting to see what other schools are doing or what other organizations or ISDs are doing around you to then say that's the way. Create the way, right? Create the path. And then allow others to say and raise their hand, okay, well, how did you do that? And how can we be doing those things together? With Legends, that is kind of our mantra, the entrepreneurial type of spirit, that we look ahead, and if we're going to fail, we're going to fail forward, right? If we're going to create change, we're going to continue to think through okay, these options 1, 2, and 3 didn't work, but option 4, here's the other one. We're going to continue to push ahead. And so what I would say for this group is understand that you cannot let others create, affect the temperature of or the environment, create the environment. So if you go to the next slide, I'm sure everybody knows kind of what these two areas are, right? One is the Nest thermostat, and the other obviously is a thermometer, right? And so quick story on the Nest. So my brother-in-law, head football coach, Alvin High School, which is a 6A school in Houston, Texas. He is one of my best friends and just a great leader, great coach, great motivator in education, right? Has been coaching football for a long time. And he and I have a lot of conversations about sports and how to be great leaders. And there was a time a couple of years ago, we kind of close to, and for those that are familiar, obviously with the temperatures that happen in Texas, it's pretty much hot 24/7, and we'll get a few snow flurries here and there. And there was an opportunity where we got to come down, watch him coach, and we were staying at his house in Houston, and we come in, he has a Nest thermostat, right? And we come into the house, it's probably 85, 90 degrees in Houston, which really means it's probably with humidity about 110, right? So that's just kind of the nature of that. So we get into the house, my wife and I were getting the bags in, and we kind of noticed that there's not really much of a change in his house, as far as from the weather outside to the weather inside. And for those that are familiar with what a Nest thermostat really does, it's meant to obviously save money, and it's meant to control environments and temperature throughout the day, right? In order for ultimately to save you money as a customer, and which is all good and great, but right, we're in it's hot, right? So we're coming in, we're got our bags and we're trying to get settled in, and where we're actually staying is in the upstairs area. And so as we all know, in this room, heat rises, so it's a little even warmer upstairs. And so come downstairs, and I see it at the hallway that the Nest thermostat is probably sitting at a brisk 82 degrees. And so I'm sitting here, and I tell my wife Julie, I'm like, you got to talk to your brother, like it's hot in here, right? Can I maybe I just adjust this real quick? And she's like, well, you'll talk to him. I know that they have that set, and it kind of just adjusts to what's going on. And so I go grab him. His name is James. It's James. Like, is there any way we can adjust this real quick? And he looks at me, just blank stare, like, no, we got it. This is temperature. I gotta save money. I said, man, look, we're gonna go stay at a hotel if you don't allow us to turn this down a little bit, because it is hot. And he said, he kind of looks at me, scratches his head a little bit. He said, if you think that's gonna make y'all feel comfortable, I mean, I'm willing to this time to do that, right? And so I tell that story. One, eventually he did allow us to kind of turn it down, and and everything was all good and well. But it was interesting because he was dead set on, like, this is the environment that you've walked in, and I've set the tone and the temperature for what's happening here, right? And here's where we're going. And this is, I don't want you to disrupt this. We're comfortable, we're used to that, right? And so it was one of those situations of, as I think about being a servant leader and in the environments that we get to create, there are going to be often times where there's going to be people that are going to come in and say, look, we need to adjust the thermostat. And as we think about some of the areas that we talked about today already, are you a disruptor, or are you disrupted? How do you engage and take those on, right? Whether it's conflicts with parents or with peers, there's going to be in times that, hey, we may need to adjust our thermostat a little bit. And are you willing to actually say, okay, is this for the good or for the worse, right? And how are you taking that on? Sometimes as leaders, we also are, as we go back and think about, the quote there by Mr. Branton earlier, sometimes we're just a thermometer, and it's a true temp check. And if it's hot, we just stay hot. We're not in the situation of, we're not going to adjust. This is just what our business does. This is just what our school does, and we aren't meant to change. We aren't meant to adjust. And what society has been telling us now as of recent, as we think about our student success and we think about where we're trying to get them, we are meant to be thermostats and adjust the climate and control the environments in order to make sure that everybody is comfortable and moving ahead in the right direction. Otherwise, what's going to happen is going to get too hot. It's going to get too hot, and people are going to say, look, either I'm out, right? I'm a teacher. I've been working so hard that the temperature's just too hot, and I can't stand it because no adjustments are being made. Or, man, this is too cold. Like we really need to turn it up because we have sat on our hands too long. It's an opportunity now for us to continue to adjust, turn it up on a little bit, start a fire, as we talked about earlier, and get people in gear to continue to move ahead. And these are conversations that I have pretty often with our teams in the collegiate space, and not even just with our teams, but with athletic directors that say, hey, look, it's very, very, very real right now as we think about in my line of work, NIL and the shuffle of school systems with Big 12 or SEC and things like that. And sometimes we have to, say, hey, look, you're about to be in the SEC, places like, University of Texas or OU. Hey, you need to start thinking about these things. You've been doing it like this for a long time. We're going to come in and really light a fire amongst the group to get you moving ahead in a different direction. And so going back to that, are you a thermostat or are you a thermometer? And this isn't just you individually. Are your campuses this way, right? And if you kind of remember, there's some of those, and I remember this at school. And when I was in school, there would be a thermostat, in the main hallways, right? And it had a giant lockbox over it. Like, it's never changing, right? And I'm sure some of y'all may actually still have that at your schools, but that's a very real thing, right? It's like, look, we're not changing. This is just, you just got to get used to it, right? And that makes a lot of sense. However, as we think about adjusting the climate in our professions, what are we doing that's going to allow people to still feel comfortable, still feel like, oh, this is a great positive change that's going to push us ahead, that's going to continue to adjust with the times, that's actually disrupting for good. And so as we click ahead to even the next slide there, so again, another reference from Simon Sinek. He wrote a book called Together is Better. And small book, it looks like a children's book, but it really comes through with a lot of great sayings. And this is one that really stuck out to me, that he references. And he says that, working hard for something that we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something that we love is called passion. And I would imagine that everybody in this room, whether you're virtual or in person, is doing something that they love. And it always references back to the students. It always references back to the individuals that you get to lock arms with and say, hey, we're in this together. But if you're sitting there divided, which the world tells us to be that way, then what tends to fall into those gaps of being of the division, right, causes the stresses in our lives. It causes the situations of, we can't be passionate because we're focused on the stressful situations, right? If we're sitting here thinking, we're trying to create change and we're trying to do these things, if we're doing it and there's gaps, what falls into those gaps tends to be the stressors that tell us that we can't do that tell us there's going to be adversity in the way and we can't push ahead. And so what I challenge you is to really hold on to the passion that from day one, when you stepped across your own stage and you said, hey, I'm going to be a teacher, an administrator, I'm going to move people ahead. And I heard earlier, without teachers, there are no doctors, there are no leaders, there's no me, right? There's nobody that's coached and taught to that. And so as you think about the passion, those should be the things that fill in those spots that should drive people together and say, like, look, we need to be united, that without what we're doing, we're not going to create the next form of doctors, the next wave of engineers. And so those needs to be the conversations that always you fall back on to say, let's be passionate together as one. And so when you think about your purpose as administrators, as leaders within your respective spaces, there's no other person that I think that can really get me hyped up than this next slide. And I really think this will, hopefully everybody knows what this is. This is another Cowboys thing for me. If you don't, like, you probably need to step out, just step out of the room. It's okay. But this is somebody that I think would be, definitely drive some things home here.
That's what's wrong with of our athletes today. We don't practice. We don't practice to be dominant. We practice to practice. What do you mean by that, crowd? I'm glad you asked. We practice counting the number of periods. We practice understanding how much time we got left. We practice just to get through practice. We cut deals in practice. You go so, I go so. We don't practice to be dominant. When I ask you, what was your purpose of practice? You ain't got no answer for me. I'm gonna ask you, what is your purpose of practice? I don't care if you practice at work. I don't care if you practice with your relationship. I don't care if you practice in any endeavor you choose to do. What is your purpose for practice? I practice to be the best ever. So every time I walked on that field, I had a purpose for my practice. True.
I mean, how can that not get you fired up, right? I mean, that is so real and paramount to, and you can take it off the slide. I'm going to close with a couple of things. As you think about servant leadership and you think about what your purpose is, right? Like it definitely means that you need to be pouring into each other. You need to be leaders that are thinking about, okay, we're not just having conversations, even like today, we're not just having, to check a box, to have a let's have a board meeting. Let's talk about what we're going to do for 2023. Let's talk about what we're going to do for this school year. We're not just checking the box, but we're also putting what we're talking about into action, right? There are times where it makes sense to, let's just have a conversation. Let's talk through what the wish list that I always like to say with my teams of, what are your wish lists? What are things you want to accomplish in this next year, in these next 60, 90 days? And then, okay, well, now what's the plan? So as I talked about earlier, writing those down, but then now let's put that into action. And so, I think as you identify, what is my purpose? What am I passionate about? Am I just practicing these things that I say that I'm passionate about? Or am I putting them into action to really showcase the purpose of why I started to become an educator, why I started to be in this profession, and I'm putting it into action each and every day so that everybody can see the positive chain reaction that I'm trying to create. And not being a thermostat, not being a thermometer, being a thermostat to actually say, I'm adjusting with the times. I'm understanding that things are going to get turbulent at times, but I'm reading the room and creating a culture that everybody is settled in, feels comfortable with, to be able to move ahead. And so I'll wrap with this exercise for those that are familiar with, and if you could put the camera back on real quick you can take it off of that slide there. I don't know, can everybody see me? So as we think about a couple of things, if you can see me, and I think you said yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So a couple of things here. I'm really big on visuals, and so for me, I think that kind of drives some things home. So just go with me on this, right? We have your family, right? Have work, right? We have your students, and then we have you. So as we line all these things up, right, we have all these glasses when we say, okay, every day as servant leaders, we're meant to pour into people, right? We're meant to pour into our students. We're meant to pour into our family. We're meant to pour into our peers. We're meant to pour into ourselves. That last one's so important. If you don't pour into yourself, it's very tough to get so much out of that. But then you say, at the end of that, I'm spent. That's just one day. I've done this. I poured so much into everything. I've given everything I have. As we talk about all the things today, and we talk about being fire starters, creating culture that we're in an environment that we're passionate about. What you'll see actually happening from your peers is they start to pour back to you. What you see from your family as you're at home and they see the passion, they see that you're not bringing stress home, you're bringing passion and talking through, hey, this is what I want for my next step, right? I want to create these changes. I want our students to be successful. You see your family pour back in support of what you're doing. And as you think about who am I latching onto as a student, who's looking at me for change, who's looking at me and saying that individual looks like me and inspires me every day. So I need to work 10 times harder because I want to be like them, or I believe that they believe in me. And so all of a sudden they give back more and they pour back into you. And then the last piece is you. As you think about all these things, are you taking time to educate yourself? Are you taking time to reflect on you and make sure that you continue to drive yourself? I've always said that leaders are readers. Are you reading and getting educated on what's happening in the world? Are you hearing from other sides, not just in education, but from other areas around the world that allow you to get perspective, to make sure that you're equipped with all the necessary things in order to be successful as a leader, to give back, finding innovative ways to pour back. And then all of a sudden, once you educate yourself, now you've poured back into you. And guess what? What tends to happen is now your cup is just as full as the individuals you pour into each and every day. And the good starts to come out. And it allows you to have a full cup each and every day. And so Legends and the company that I work for, you'll notice the logo is this wheel, right? And this continuous cycle. And that is what we're built upon, is we continue to pour into others. And ultimately what's going to come back is full circle. And the last slide that I had there was really, believe that there's good in this world. And as you break up those words, you see be the good. I believe that there's good in this world because I know that there's good people and there's good teachers in this world that create those good people and the goodness that's around it. Continue to be the good, continue to strive for that in your necessary places of work, and understand that the good is being seen each and every day. And if you can also allow your cultures to embody that, the good is going to continue to shine through before anything dark can even have a chance to do so. Thank you for the time today. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this, and wish you guys nothing but success in the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Penix. He was amazing, absolutely amazing. I think the thing that really stuck with me was the servant leadership, but also some of the things that he said that really challenged me. Be challenging yourself. What is your purpose? Why do we do what we do? Are you being united in your purpose? Also, be a disruptor. Move for change. If change is necessary, do it. Do we just do the same things over and over just because that's how we've always done it? Always done it doesn't necessarily mean sometimes it's time to get out of that box. Think, shake things up. And don't be afraid to adjust your thermostat. Sometimes you can be a thermostat, but sometimes you're a thermometer. But I understand that 85 degrees in Houston, you probably need to be a thermostat. It's pretty warm. I've been there. It's hot. It's Texas. So always ask yourself, as educators, as leaders, as administrators, as whatever role you play, ask yourself, what is your passion? Why am I doing what I do? It's important because at the end of the day, I listened to a thing the other day. I was listening to, I might have been a TED Talk. I'm not sure where I got that information, but they were talking about at the end of their life, they asked some questions. What were some of the things that they regretted? And the people always would say, like, I regretted that I spent too much time working. I spent time away from my family. No one ever regretted the fact that they had done all that they could do. When you've done all that you can do, when you fought the good fight, you can lay that down. And so as educators and administrators, it is our job, it is our duty, it is our passion, it is your assignment to do all that you can do. I love that enthusiasm. All right. Yes. right. Have we not been blessed this morning? Oh my goodness. Yes. Give everyone a round of applause. At this time, I am going to introduce you all to Dr. Melba Foster. She is a clinical instructor of education at Texas A&M University, Texarkana, my alma mater. Yes. Yes. My bachelor and my master's. Yes. All right. So, hope to be my doctor. Anyway. I will. Yes, ma'am. All right. So she's going to be bringing us a unique perspective of having a background in K through 12 and now as a university professor. Dr. Foster will give us her insight into the conference thing. Dr. Melba Munoz Foster comes from a long line of public school educators. In fact, she's a third generation educator, and next year, her youngest daughter will be the fourth. Hey, that's to celebrate. Yes, Dr. Foster has over 30 years of EC through 6 public education experience and is currently in higher education at Texas A&M University, Texarkana, where she's been teaching for this past 5 years. She received her bachelor's degree in elementary education with a specialization in reading at Pan American University, now known as the University of Texas, at the Rio Grande Valley. The first 12 years of her teaching career, Dr. Foster taught everything from pre-K 4 through 7th grade self-contained. But her favorite years were spent in first and second grade classrooms. Bless you for that. She later received her master's degree in elementary education and her principal certification at Texas A&M Texarkana. Dr. Foster spent her last 15 years in public education as a primary school principal. It was during her tenure as a principal that she was selected to attend a summer training at Harvard University. And this career-altering event was made possible by philanthropist Mr. Charles Butt at Raise Your Hand, Texas. It was at this training that transformed Dr. Foster's vision of leadership, family involvement, student achievement, and faculty professional development training. These last 5 years at Texas A&M Texarkana, Dr. Foster has attained her doctorate degree in educational leadership, and she continues to learn and grow in her understanding of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, social emotional learning, and utilization of high leverage practices in her courses. Currently, Dr. Foster is the coordinator for clinical experiences for a year-long residency, and she's a field supervisor for field-based and clinical-based students, which is the student teachers. She is considered an expert in the fields of classroom management, school administration, and literacy leadership. Although Dr. Foster never sought nor received special accolades, awards, or recognitions during her career as a teacher or principal, she is content in knowing that she did the best that she knew to do, and when she learned more, she did better. In the words of the late John McDowell, Dr. Foster's college basketball coach, as he was being interviewed by the college newspaper, said, Melba may not put many points on the scoreboard, but that's because she is in the one boxing out, diving for the loose ball, rebounding, or passing to the scoring teammate. Now, those numbers are not on the stat sheet that no one can see. Well, the same goes for Dr. Foster's leadership. She made sure that her students and faculty received all the accolades, awards, and recognition that they so aptly deserved. Dr. Foster has been happily married to the love of her life, Dr. Terry Foster, for 32 years. Together, they have 2 beautiful daughters and 2 handsome son-in-laws, Dr. Lauren Norton and Tyler Norton, Clayton, and Natalie Mosley. They also have 5 fur babies that they treat like their grandchildren. I present to you Dr. Foster.
Yep, there it is. Okay.
I'm a teacher at heart, and y'all are too far from me. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I have to say, I need to thank Ms. Janelle Ingram for inviting me to speak here. I was so touched that she reached out to me because I feel a special kindred towards me. I don't know if she does me, but I do her towards Ms. Janelle because we have gone along the same path in our professional journey. I know what she's done. I know what I've done, where we've done it, and probably what we put up with. And we're sisters for life. That's all I can say. And I say this because, the reason why I was so elated to come speak, because yeah, I am female, sorry, but I have to point this out, I am female and I am a woman of color. Although that's usually been regarded for African Americans of color, but as I've gotten older and I've learned so much more, that's me too. That's anybody that isn't white. And I'm not pointing out the white. I'm going to get to my point in just a minute because let's look at that. Let's look at the elephant in the room. However, this is for minority groups. That's what the purpose of this group is. And I applaud that. But now look at here, we've got all different kinds of people come to this because that's what it is. It's coming together. Okay, we're going to get to the purpose in just a minute. But I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here and to share my story and my purpose. Let's see. Well, okay. Yeah, okay. So before we can even continue with our conversation here, we need to know the why. It just felt it went to sleep. So one of the key indicators of student success is the feeling of belonging. I'm sure every single one of you could tell a story about how you felt othered. I learned that during my doctoral process. I'd never heard that term. Do you feel othered? And I said, what is that? Well, do you feel different? Do you feel like the social pariah? Do you feel like an outsider? And I bet my salary that every single one of you has a story you can tell of feeling that way. Well, but look at you. You persevered. You pulled yourself up by the bootstraps, even though you felt othered, and you have become successful despite that, or in spite of that. And a very dear friend of mine quoted this and says, if students can see you, they know they can be you, which is what Mr. Penix alluded to as well earlier. Skin color makes a difference. Understanding culture makes a huge difference. And I'm going to be focusing on K-12, most of this, and then I'm going to flip it over to higher ed, where I come in and I'm trying to close that gap with new teachers coming out with this new understanding and this new approach. So as we continue with what you're doing in life, making sure that students feel welcomed and afford them success. You as leaders in whatever position you play, whether it's in K-12 or higher ed, it doesn't matter. You're a leader because number one, you're here learning more. And what did Mr. Penix say? A leader is a reader. Well, you're not reading here, you're acting, you're listening, okay? You have to have a culture of commitment and cohesiveness wherever you are. If there's ever any dissension, what happens? It doesn't go anywhere. It's just a quagmire of nothingness, just going down the drain. You have to be in a group of people and you have to be an innovative thinker. Again, I refer back to Mr. Penix, don't just sit there and let it come to you, be the disruptor. And then you need to have a lot of collaborative planning. So if you're K-12 and you're part of committees or you're part of subgroups, you've got to come together and you got to be speaking the same thing. You got to speak the same language. But then again, take it a step further. Let's not make silos out of those committees, out of those whatever side programs. You all have to come together. You have to speak to each other, and it has to be a symbiotic relationship. You learn that in science. where the cell, it's a membrane, but things can seep through. That's what y'all need to do. Provide an opening so that others can come in and out and y'all can learn and to and fro and be one big happy organism. Okay, so real quickly, stories from the field. There's so much I could tell you. Teachers coming out of university that'll end up in our area districts, because they usually stay here. Most students that go to school here are from here and they're going to stay here. So they're going to end up back in your district. I want you to know though, and like I said, I'm sure you have stories too. I have read some personal stories because as part of our new training at A&M Texarkana in our education department, we've undergone a transformation these last 2 years. We have gone through tremendous training with DEI. Again, Mr. Penich brought that up, and Dr. Holt, diversity, equity, inclusion. And of course, we got to add a B for belonging. I learned that this past year. If you haven't heard DEI, or it's not part of your vocabulary, make it a part of your vocabulary. I've brought it into the fold with my students so that when they come to you as districts, they are aware and fully knowledgeable of what DEIB is all about. Because of our training, I brought in an activity to my students. I teach classroom management. That's the one course that I work on. And one of the activities is for them to self-reflect. Because I've always told in conversation, I'm real open and honest. I'm very transparent with my students. As a former principal, I come to them with like, look, this is what your principal is going to want and not want. So get ready and understand that. Like stay out of the teacher's lounge. You know, don't be carrying your cell phone. I mean, all this laundry list of things. Anyway, I digress. But one of the activities is for them to self-reflect and to tell me their background, their history of how they were raised, because that makes a difference. Who was a disciplinarian in their home? How did they value education? How did they value teachers? Okay, and I would always say, I mean, I know I'm Hispanic, but I used to love having Hispanic families. Now, being stereotypical here, why do you think I enjoyed Hispanic students the most? Just popcorn. Any experience that you have with Hispanic families and culture, what do you think? Well behaved, because they knew if they got, which is true of any culture, right? Thank you, but go a little deeper. What else with the Hispanic culture? Yes, they value education. Because they come, a lot of them are immigrants, let's face it, a lot of them are, especially in this area. They come without an education, they come without the language of the community. They know how valuable an education is. Hence, I'm third generation. I mean, let's think about that. It was early 1900s that my grandmother, anyway. So yeah, I mean, we value education. So I need for my students to dig deep, peel back those layers that they have covered up all these years and flesh it out. I promise you that first time I did that and read those self-reflections, it was another activity. I said, okay, now self-reflect. I cried. You will not realize well, I'm sure you do, the horror stories that these adult students now experienced as children as they were growing up. Yet they kept on and they survived and they persevered, just like I know all of us did as well. And they are striving to be the teacher that either pulled them out and pulled them up or squelched them to hurt them. They said, okay, I'm not going to be like you, but I am going to be like you. So they come into education. I'm here to tell you, everybody has a story in education, and that affects the way you're going to be as a teacher. So I would hope that when they do come out, that they are coming out with, okay, I know that this hurts kids, so I'm not going to do that. And I want to uplift them. And one of the ways that they are training them to do it is to embrace everybody's culture. Now, this is where the fun came in. part of our training 2 years ago during COVID. Now, again, I'm brown, right? I'm brown. And we're getting training from Michigan State University. So they're up north, right? They're not in the South, in the Bible Belt. They're not here in Texas. Want to talk red, blue, left, right. Okay, well, here we are. And they throw out this term, disrupting white privilege. Everybody was aghast, all my faculty colleagues, white, brown, at least in the education department. Yeah, we have no African Americans in our education department. So everybody was kind of left shifting. This is Zoom, the world, mind you, everybody just kind of shifting around, kind of saying, ooh. At first, there was some tension. Okay, so mind you, 2 years later, now, I get it. Because even me, even though I didn't have a dog in the fight, right? Because I'm not African American, I'm not white. So I was like in a tennis match going back and forth, I was laughing at myself. I wasn't out doing it out loud, but then I said, now wait a minute, Foster, I'm married to a white guy. I love white people. My girls are half white. You're talking about my people here. What's the deal? What do you mean disrupting white privilege? What? So that's part of my lessons in classroom management. There's another activity that we do when we talk about, okay, how many of you can walk into Walmart and find, well, for the women, nude colored pantyhose? Raise your hand if you can do that. Easily. All right. Raise your hand if you can just get up out of bed, sock a cap on to cover your head. Easily done? Maybe, maybe not. Why not? Why not to the nude pantyhose, women of color? Why couldn't we find nude pantyhose at Walmart? They don't come in your shade, do they? That's white privilege. White people, and I say that loosely, guys, I am not racist. I'm married to a white guy. I love white people, okay? That's white privilege where lighter skinned people don't have that struggle. They don't have to think twice about, okay, that store may have it, and Walmart, Target, which one do I go to? No, they can walk into any store and find what they need. What's the deal with the cap, ladies? What's the deal with the cap? May or may not fit under that cap. What may or may not fit under that cap, Miss Rice? Your hair. Exactly. Could you wear a cap, Miss Janelle, with your hair so beautiful like that? No. So again, girls with straight, flattish hair can just sock on a cap and go on. Same thing goes with makeup foundation. Women, yeah, special order, right? Special order. Okay, all of that is white privilege. It's a privilege that we don't get to experience because we got to think twice. Now, let's talk about African-American males. Well, I know I have many friends that are fathers, and they have to have that conversation. Which conversation is that? When you get pulled over, not if. This is how you should act. This is where you put your hands. This is where you look. This is how you act, all that kind of stuff. Do lighter skinned people need to have said conversations here in Northeast Texas? Nah, probably not. Okay? White privilege, guys. That's what that is. It's not offensive. It's just an eye opener for everybody of different cultures. Okay? So the key is to dig deep, find out where you sit and how you can make that better. And just be aware. Just be aware that there are going to be other cultures in your classrooms. By the way, I do need to find out, who are K-12 teachers here? Okay. Students? Where are you students? Texarkana College. Awesome. Student, employee, what are you? Okay, he's a worker bee. He's a worker bee. Okay. Okay, what are you? Awesome. Go Eagles. All right. Where'd you get your degree in? Oh, he's a high techie smarty pants, right? Congratulations. That is awesome. Okay, so we all come with different backgrounds, different stories to tell, different home culture things to do, right? I mean, even the way we celebrate Christmas, the way we celebrate Thanksgiving, every family has their own set of ways of doing it. That's their own culture. And so part of this also is making sure that my students, I can only speak to my students, have an opening and I tell them, okay, bulletin boards. What's one way that you can be inclusive with the utilization of bulletin boards? And it would be, celebrating different cultures a month or every 2 weeks. With food, kids love food, people love food. Get those parents involved, family, because when you have a child in your class, you also have their family. Okay, it's a whole package type thing. Okay, so as my intro, I mean, I'm all about basketball and all about sports. I did play basketball in college. I love to play. I wasn't the best and I wasn't the tallest. I had a friend who played in the men's basketball team, and we were joking around. I said, look, I can do this, or I can almost touch the rim or whatever. He goes, Mel, we used to call him Mel, you don't jump, you stretch. He goes, 'cause I was up off that high off the ground, but I had a long stretch and I could snag those balls from that way. But I bring this playbook up, okay? And then we're gonna make a connection in just a minute. What is the purpose of a playbook for anything, not just for basketball, but for life? I mean, anything. What does a playbook afford you as a player or the coach? Structure. What? A guide. Okay, and if you'll notice, as you know, there are 5 different positions for this particular team of basketball, right? Was anybody else on a team that wasn't athletic? What were you on? UIL, okay, academic, what was your area? Oral, reading, and writing, that's awesome. Okay, so you were on a team as an academic team. Any other type of team experience in here? Cheerleader, yes, yes, okay, yes, choir. So think about, okay, I'm gonna get down to it in just a minute, but even in choir, maybe they're not given numbers, but they're given the voice levels or whatever you call that, right? Okay, and then you said something else before choir. Cheerleader, especially cheerleader, numbers, positions. Okay, somewhere my girls were in cheerleader, but I was not a cheer mom. That was foo-foo to me. I was like, I'm the athlete. No, okay, no, I got to take it back. Cheerleaders are athletes. Yes, they are. I have to be real careful with that. So you had base, you had stunt, you had flyer. So everybody had a job, right? A different position. Okay. All right, so the playbook is the how. How do you get to the purpose that you're looking for? So I was thinking that I was speaking to campus leaders or aspiring campus leaders, but it's okay. You're leaders in your own right, just like Dr. Holt and Mr. Pennick said. You have to have a mission and a vision for anything you do, whether it's at work, whether it's your personal journey that you want to take. You have a playbook in your mind, you just don't know that yet. There's an order of events that you need to have happen so that you can attain that degree, so you can attain that certification. Whatever it is you're looking for, there's a playbook in your brain, you just don't realize it. But on a campus level, or anytime you're at work and it's your group level, okay, even businesses, there is a mission and a vision. Everywhere you go, there is one. Now, whether it's visible or it's discussed, and whether you know it or not, it exists. But it needs to be considered a living document. It can't just be something that's created and put on the shelf. That's your playbook. You have to use it, pull it out every day and look through and say, okay, well, this is this, we got to move this, we got to do, we're not doing that as well. Let's focus on this, whatever it is. It's got to be a living document. And everybody has to have a common purpose. So you're at the workplace, you're on the campus, you have to have a common purpose. You have to have 100% buy-in from everybody that's coming to the table. And in school world, that's your campus. Every teacher has to have buy-in. For students in your college, in your coursework, everybody has to have buy-in so that you can learn in that course. I can guarantee you, your teacher has a playbook known as a syllabus, known as the modules, whatever. There's a playbook that you have to go, that you have to follow. You need to have a diverse campus culture mindset. I don't care what it is you do in life. Not so much the campus, so to speak, the workplace, the classroom, the office area. You have to have diversity at the forefront of your brain because you're dealing with diverse people. Everybody doesn't look like you, doesn't sound like you. So you need to learn about that diverse group. The more you know about them, the better you're going to be at whatever it is you're doing. So each member make up the team. So students in the classroom, that is your team, and you have a part to play. Teachers on a campus, everybody has a part to play. Leaders, you definitely have a part to play. Leaders meaning admin that are guiding these folks here. And you have to believe that students can be successful. We have got to get out of that quagmire. As a principal, you heard this a lot. Oh, she's from the Sprayberry family. We know how that family goes. You know, there's that and when teachers go back to the year before teacher or the year, they say, hey, watch out for this kid. That's a disservice to that student. Already he's failing, she's failing because that negative seed has been planted. We've got to stop doing that. You have to believe that every student can and be successful. Okay, yes, that's me. Much, much younger. But I want you to look at this. I want you to analyze this picture and think about what I just finished talking about. So analyze this. Does anybody see a problem? Just look at the picture. Say again. I'm about to get blocked. Yes. Yes. Well, how do you come up with that decision? How do you come up with that?
Because her hands in the air.
Her hands in the air. What else?
What
else? She's
over
twice as tall as me, right? Okay. So of course I'm yeah. So she's all over me, right? All right. So you can see my face. Okay. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So I've got the ball in my hands, right? I have a decision to make. Right here's another Bridget Ivory, by the way, but it's spelled differently. And that's from, she's right here. She's, yeah, right there. She's my teammate. She's my teammate. What do you think Melba does? Is Melba alone in this area right here? No. What does Melba do? Yeah. I was like, I'm getting rid of this sucker. Yeah. Melba had the eye of the ball, I can guarantee you. I didn't do a turnaround jumper. I can tell you that. Because I knew I could depend on my team. I knew they were there. How did I know that? Everybody played a part, right? I knew I had support. We lost, but it doesn't matter. So, united for purpose. What happens when a diverse group of educators collaborate? Each member brings their individual strengths and expertise to the team. You are a team member. I don't care what it is you do in life. You are a team member, whether it's with your spouse and your children. You are a team, and everybody has a role to play. As a team, they are stronger together, and students succeed. Bottom line, guys, we got to work together. We each have our own unique gifts and traits that we can contribute to whatever it is you're working on, whatever it is you're going to be working on. Because without this unity, what are we going to get? It doesn't look good, does it? We see it happening. We see it now. That's not what we want. I don't want that for my grandchildren. I don't. I want a better place for them. This is the beginning, Ms. Janelle, is what you're doing here and inviting people like me to come and share cultural differences, share my understandings of, hey, this is what I experienced. Can we make it better? I can tell you right now, our people, your colleagues, and you have experienced something that was hurtful, that was life-altering, good, bad, or ugly, usually bad, that directed you, to where you are now. Maybe you said, in spite of that, I'm still going to go and get educated. In spite of that, and just learn about the cultures of the people around you. I will say this, I'm not going to say the name, y'all can figure it out. This boy, when he was 4 years old, he gave me the blues. Had him for pre-K4. Had him for I was a principal. And in those days, back in the mid-90s, there was a high peak on African-American males being sent to DAEP or being in special education. But was it always because of educative issues? It was behavioral. But peel back the layers. Who didn't understand what that child was doing or experiencing? The teacher that sent him there, usually. Whenever I'll get back to the story, but whenever I would meet, when I was doing a little stint for middle school, I had good rapport with my kids. I did. It was what we call real talk. I was open with them. They were open with me. I didn't judge them, and they would confide in me. African-American males, they would come to me, Miss Foster. Yes, baby, let's hear it. But when a teacher, white female, always the case, kicked them out of class, go to the office for talking or whatever. This is what changed me. He goes, Miss Foster, she didn't respect me. And because she didn't respect me, I'm not going to respect her. Now, y'all, I'm old school. And I was raised when kids are seen and not heard. All right. Of course, Hispanic, you do not talk back to an adult. You don't do direct eye contact because it's disrespectful. And I thought to myself, God, you're nuts if you think I'm going to listen to that. They didn't respect you, then you don't. It don't work that way, little boy. That was in my mind. But I took a deep breath. He was being very honest with me and very open, and that was his world. But it wasn't just him. It was all that age, that group, that generation, that if they're not respected first, and I really think it's from any color, they're not going to give it back. And that's what it was, a power struggle here. And to teach these middle-aged white women, oh my goodness, women, trying to be a leader of women, that's a whole other topic, a whole other seminar. Women are hard on each other. I'm just going to be honest, man, they're just hard, but that's another, but strengthen up. Yeah, just stick to your guns because right is right. I couldn't teach them any differently. They needed to go home. They were at that level. So it got to the point where I was saying, buddy, please just don't say anything and just stay out of trouble. I was pleading with these kids. I was tired of seeing them in the office. But that changed my way of thinking about that generation. I said, he's right. They may be young, but we need to show them respect because in turn, yes, that's what they'll show us back, right? Going back to this 4-year-old that gave me the blues, I literally had to develop a social interaction class. I made it up because I was desperate, where I got a paraprofessional, and there wasn't just him, but he was one of the main ones, and like 3 or 4 other little Black African-American males who were giving me the blues as well. So you know what? We're going to put them aside, teach them board games. Now, why in the world would Foster let these kids play board games during the day? Who can figure that one out?
Teamwork.
Cooperation, waiting to take your turn, simple things like that, yes, that they missed along the way. Life gets busy with moms and, it gets busy. They're not taught those little steps. Well, time rocks on. This kid, and you'll know who it is now the lead dunker at Kentucky State. I'd like to think I had something to do with that. I don't know. He probably didn't remember me, but I tried, but he made it along the way. He stayed in class, didn't get suspended, didn't get kicked out. Basketball probably saved him, right? Okay. Yeah, so he's the leading dunker. He's as tall as that, and his legs are this big around. He's skinny. But anyway, I'm proud of him nonetheless. All this to say, guys, we need to come together. No matter our backgrounds, no matter our cultures, that doesn't matter. We need to make sure our students are successful, and it starts with us. And I want to thank y'all so much for today. I appreciate it. Yes, absolutely. We got a question.
Okay, so I was making sure it was on. Thank you so much for that presentation. I really did enjoy it. When I was at Texas A&M University of Texarkana, we did have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that we did have. I'm not sure if it's still around now, sadly, but when I was in that diversity, equity, and inclusion committee at one point, it was mostly just, I wouldn't say female more towards it, but I was part of PATH, which stood for Personal Achievement Through Help, which is also a African-American male group that helped us get through college. And we were having a little bit of trouble issues on campus with the couple of the baseball players and all that. They just weren't liking, the whole stint of how it went. And we were all just trying to figure out, what can we do to help make this campus feel more at home? Because I was not honest with my feelings about it, but at A&M, I didn't really feel at home. Even though I was part of PATH, I didn't really feel at home. So when I joined the TASB, even though now I'm kind of part of IT, so I hadn't had much time, but when I joined the TASB, I felt like there was a more connection there, and I wanted to get more PATH members. And then they hadn't installed Crown, which was a offshoot of PATH for females. And I was telling them about NATASB and how diversity, equity, and inclusion can be included into NATASB, and we could take some of what they were saying and apply it to A&M. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that I want to, excuse me, I was just going to say thank you so much for the presentation. I really do appreciate that. And I lost my train of thought there, but
I know what you're trying to say. Well, you know, your name is Richard. Yes. The new director of DEIB is Catherine Montgomery. She wasn't there when you were there. We got somebody focused on just that. And I'm going to get y'all hooked up together because you can be an ambassador for these kids going through now. I'm not done with you. So I am so glad to hear that you're a part of PATH. And yes, I know the Crown and the girl, and it was a big group. I spoke again because I'm Hispanic, trying to get diverse people in there. And it was a big group, and I was really glad to see that. So it may be a slow start, but we're up and coming. You know, these diverse groups, we need to stick together. We need to keep going to these things. So.
Story about how the fourth grader gave you or 4-year-old gave you the blues. It touched me a little bit because just recently I had to fix a Chromebook because I'm part of IT. So I had to fix a Chromebook for a student that was in ISS, and he was the sweetest child. And I looked at him, I was like, dude, how did you even get into ISS in the first place? And I had to fix the Chromebook because it got past our firewalls and all that. And when they left, I looked at the librarian, I was like, these kids are smart in ISS because they're getting past all of this. Do we not have an IT course here? And it's at the middle.
That's what that's.
Yes, because they're bored maybe, or they got into something where they shouldn't have been. They just misguided. They need to be redirected. So yeah, we're missing it, guys. We're missing when these boys are sent to ISS DAP, something's broken between our communication. And that's something else that we need to focus on as well. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Foster. Let's give her another round of applause. She was absolutely amazing. Amazing. Guys, I don't know about you all, but I am just over the moon. I've had the best morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We have had such a wonderful time. And I am so blessed to be here right now. I want to bring us up to our keynote speaker, Dr. Kimberly McLeod. She will be visiting us via Zoom. She's the Dean of College of Education and Human Services at Texas A&M University in Commerce. Dr. McLeod is an education professional that has spent her professional career in public and higher education. She has served as a teacher, a counselor, and administrator in public school, and her leadership experience in higher education, including serving Texas A&M University Commerce, a regional rural institution in the A&M system, and Texas Southern University, a historically Black urban university in Houston. She currently serves as the Associate Vice President for Economic and Academic Development for TAMUC. Serving the university in this capacity, she fosters strong external relations by serving as a liaison to local and regional community stakeholders. She represents the university in regional and statewide efforts to address educational and workforce issues facing the state of Texas, particularly for underrepresented groups and post-secondary credentials of value. She previously served as the Dean and Chief of Academic Officer of TAMUC's College of Education and Human Services. Her previous experience in executive administration includes serving as Director of Teaching and Learning Excellence Center, which is a faculty professional development, Dean of Multidisciplinary University Satellite Campus, Northwest Houston, and simultaneously Executive Director of Academic Affairs and Instruction. She also serves as a facilitator for the Texas A&M System Affinity Group of 11. We Teach Texas Education Deans. Dr. McLeod is immediate past president of the Texas Alliance of Black School Educators and the founding editor of the nationally peer-reviewed National Journal of Urban Education, and has written 8 academic books, 3 children's books, and various articles in peer-reviewed journals. She has been awarded Teacher of the Year by the College of Education at Texas Southern University and was selected as an award recipient of the YMCA Minority Achiever Award. Dr. McLeod is the project lead on a report is based on an independent study funded in 2022 by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, THECB, with Texas A&M University Commerce, in collaboration with the Texas Education Policy Institute on student success, entitled Reimagining Educational Achievement Cultures in Higher Education, Moving Texas Towards Student Success. Dr. McLeod is a doting mom of 3 boys, Major, Mitchell, and Micah. For some, I introduce, others I present, Dr. Kimberly McLeod.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. If you could just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and see my screen. All right. Very, very good. I thank you for the very kind introduction. And Lee, thank you for the invitation to come before you today. You know, I was texting Lee back and forth. Okay, who's my audience? Am I talking to aspiring administrators? Am I talking to higher ed professionals? And he said, you're going to have a little bit of mix of both. And you all have had just phenomenal presentations before me. I've been with you since early this morning, and I've had a chance to listen in to all of them. So I'm not going to repeat a lot of what's been said. And as I was listening, I was kind of fine-tuning my presentation. I was like, I need to come at a different angle. And so I want to talk to you about what this means, your theme, United in Purpose. And I really want to bring that home in a way that I hope will not only provide light on your path, but nourish the very nature you need to feed your passion to continue to move forward. My name is Kimberly McLeod. I want to start by sharing you just a very short clip. It's like 3 minutes. And this is one of the speeches from Malcolm X. And I want you to listen when he talks about identity formation. And I'm sharing this because I want you to know the place that you're going to go, the individuals that you will be leading or are already leading. I want you to just embrace a kind of mindset that you may have to embrace in order to facilitate success. So just three minutes, I want you to listen to this clip.
Why should the Black man in America concern himself, since we've been away from the African continent for 400 years, 400 years? Why should we concern ourselves? What impact does what happened to them have upon us? Number one, first you have to realize that up until 1959, Africa was dominated by the colonial powers, and by the colonial powers of Europe having complete control over Africa, they projected the image of Africa negatively. They projected Africa always in a negative light. Jungles, savages, cannibals, nothing civilized. And naturally, it was so negative until it was negative to you and me. And you and I began to hate it. We didn't want anybody to tell us anything about Africa, much less call us an African. And in hating Africa and hating the African, we ended up even hating ourselves without even realizing it. Because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. You can't hate your origin and not end up hating yourself. You can't hate Africa and not hate yourself. And you show me one of these people over here who have been thoroughly brainwashed, who has a negative attitude toward Africa, and I'll show you one that has a negative attitude toward himself. You can't have a negative attitude toward yourself, a positive attitude toward yourself, and a negative attitude toward Africa at the same time. To the same degree that your attitude, that your understanding of an attitude toward Africa becomes positive, you'll find that your understanding of and your attitude toward yourself will also become positive. And this is what the white man knows. So they very skillfully made you and me hate our African identity, our African characteristics. And you know yourself that we have been a people who hated our African characteristics. We hated our hair. We hated the shape of our nose. We wanted one of those long dog-like noses, you know. Yeah. We hated the color of our skin. Hated the blood of Africa that was in our veins. And then hating our features and our skin and our blood, why we had to end up hating ourselves. And we hated ourselves. Our color became to us a chain. We felt that it was holding us back. Our color became to us like a prison, which we felt was keeping us confined, not letting us go this way or that way. And we felt that all of these restrictions were based solely upon our color, and the psychological reaction to that would have to be that as long as we felt imprisoned or chained or trapped by black skin, black features, and black blood, that skin and those features and that blood that was holding us back automatically had to become hateful to us. And it became hateful to us. It made us feel inferior. It made us feel inadequate. It made us feel helpless. And when we fell victim to this feeling of inadequacy or inferiority or helplessness, we turned to somebody else to show us the way. We didn't have confidence in another black man to show us the way, or black people to show us the way. In those days, we didn't. We didn't think a black man could do anything but play some horn, you know, some sound, and make you happy with some songs. And in that way, but when in serious things, where our food, clothing, and shelter was concerned, and our education was concerned, we turned to the man. We never thought in terms of bringing these things into existence for ourselves. We never thought in terms of doing things for ourselves because we felt helpless. And what made us feel helpless was our hatred for ourselves.
And I want to pause there, and I want to say it wasn't only African-American community that has experienced this. I've gone across the country, nationally, internationally, and have done workshops on cultural responsiveness. And the reality is this negative identity formation for African-American learners also occurred for those where English was not their first language. And they refused to teach their native language to their children for shame for fear of shame and humiliation and oppression, where in South Carolina, Gullah is a disappearing language. In Louisiana, Creole is a disappearing language. My best friend in high school, one of my best friends in high school, who was of Mexican ancestry, her parents wouldn't teach her Spanish. And we're sitting in Spanish class together. I'm like, Jeanette, why are you struggling in Spanish? Your parents are fluent. She says they won't teach it to me. I'm like, well, why not? You have the best teachers at home. She says they don't want me to have an accent. And what I'm saying, this embrace of this negative self-identity formation based upon stereotypes that are non-existent, that do not live except with when we breathe them and we mentally believe them, have caused a generation of students that have, it's been this self-hate has been passed down to the point where African-American students will come into a classroom and think that they are incapable of learning, that they can't do as well as their counterparts. And they think they can't do that because of the color of their skin, which is a stereotype. This is a quote I want to share with you by a man by the name of Carter G. Woodson. And one of the things that he says is this. He says, if you can control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you don't have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you don't have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. And if you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you don't have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. And I'm sharing all of that to say, when we talk about united in purpose, united in strength, part of the things that we have to confront as leaders is one, embracing our own identity, embracing the strength that comes with loving yourself so that you are in a position to teach others how to love themselves and how to reject this negative mindset that has been passed down, either directly or indirectly, either someone telling them or they're learning it based upon how somebody has treated them, responded to them, reacted to them, what they're seeing in media. They have to be able to have the strength to counteract that. That's not true. And it's certainly not true about me. But do you know who you are? I've shared this story before, but I'm going to share it again because it has so much value and my back is already up against time. And I'm going to go with, I have a lot I want to get through to you all. And I'm going to do the best that I can to navigate as quickly as possible. But it's the story of this eagle. And I wanted to show you this picture to show you how large and massive these animals are. These eagles aren't like, you see them way up, way up in the sky, and you think like they're little birdies. They are so very little birdies. Eagles are so massive and so strong. They are nicknamed the king of the sky. And one day there's this story of this eagle egg that fell from this nest. And this farmer is walking along the road and he sees this eagle egg. He knows what it is. He also knows he doesn't have the capacity to climb the mountaintop to put it back in the nest. And so he said, you know what? I'm going to take it home. I'm going to put it with my chickens so the chicken can nest this egg until it hatches. And so he put this eagle egg in with the chicken coop. And the hens are sitting on the egg and the egg hatches and this eaglet is born. And this eaglet grows up with these chickens, learns how to eat chicken food with his chicken siblings that were also hatched at the same time. He learns how to move like a chicken. He learns to try and peck like a chicken. He learns the chicken ideology and he assimilates to a chicken culture. He thinks he is a chicken. And this king of the sky has adopted this chicken mentality and this chicken mindset, this chicken diet, this chicken culture, chicken friends, chicken siblings, and he's in this cage with all of the other chickens in this coop. And you know, chickens can't fly. So there's no need to have a cover on top of the coop because they can't fly out of it. So he's in this open coop with all of these other chickens, and this other eagle flies by and he sees the oddest thing he has ever seen in his life. He sees this eagle in a chicken coop with chickens eating chicken food. He's like, what in the world? So he flies down, he sits on the edge of this chicken coop, and he calls over to the eaglet. He's like, say, what are you doing? And the eaglet comes over, he goes, I'm just playing with my friends. He goes, friends? Who, chickens? He said, yeah, I'm a chicken. And the eagle says, you're not a chicken? He goes, yeah, I am a chicken. He goes, no, you're not. What are you doing in here? He said, fly out of here. He says, you know, chickens can't fly. I can't fly out of here. He goes, yeah, but you're not a chicken. What are you doing? He said, I am a chicken. These are my chicken brothers and my chicken sisters and my chicken mother and my chicken coop and my chicken nest. And he said, you're not a chicken. You're an eagle. You are a king. What are you doing here with chickens? And this eaglet says, but I am a chicken. And then the farmer throws this chicken food, and then the eagle starts to bend down and eat this chicken food. And the eagle's like, that's enough. He grabbed this eaglet, threw him on his back, and flew him out of the coop. He says, you're not a chicken. He goes, I am a chicken. I was born a chicken. He goes, you are a king. You are not a chicken. What are you doing in a chicken coop? He said, fly. He goes, but I can't fly. I'm telling you, chickens can't fly. He said, but he goes, but you're not a chicken. He goes, look, he flew over this field. He goes, do you see this field? And the eaglet says, yes. He says, do you see that movement in the field? He said, yeah, I see it. He says, well, that's a mouse. You can see that because you have eagle eyes. You have an eagle vision. Eagles can see things others cannot. Let me tell you something about leadership. Leaders, true leaders, authentic leaders are visionaries. They can see things others cannot. If you are a leader without vision, you are a master illusionist. Eagles have vision. Leaders can see things others cannot. He goes, you can see this because you have eagle eyes. You're a king of the sky. He goes, now spread out your wings and fly. He goes, but I can't fly. You can. And so he kind of shifted and made the eagle fly on his own, and the eagle started tumbling down, falling down. He's like, I can't do it. I can't fly. And the eagle swoops, grabs him back. He said, listen to me. He put him back on his back. You are the king of the sky. You can fly. And so he flew over this lake. He goes, do you see that? Look at that water. He says, I see that. I see it. Do you see that movement? He says, yes. He says, this is eagle's food, eagle's hunt. And that fish, you can see that that's eagle food. That's what we eat. Eagles are hunters. Eagles aren't going to eat food that's thrown on the bottom of a pen. They want fresh meat. What I'm telling you, as a leader with an eagle mentality, an eagle vision, and an eagle heart, and an eagle mission, you don't just take what's given to you. You hunt for the solutions where the solution does not exist. You don't wait for somebody to throw it at you. When you know there is an issue, when you know there is a problem, eagles hunt. And they don't want dead food. They're not going to eat carcasses. They're not going to eat corn. Eagles are going to want something fresh, something new, something innovative, something live, something that will feed their soul and the nature that currently exists in the present. Eagles are hunters. And so he's flying with this baby eaglet. He said, let me tell you something. You can see this because you have eagle vision. That is eagle food. This is what eagles do. Eagles are hunters. Eagles, you are a king. You are not a chicken. He said, now spread your wings and fly. And so the eaglet spread his wings, and he felt that wind just grip him. And he felt his wings kind of cut through the air. And he says, don't flap, just glide. You are the king. You control this sky. And the eagle began to lower himself and the eaglet began to fly, and the eagle said, I'm the king of the sky. And I'm telling you this, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know that you were born to lead and that you have the power to be the king of the sky, then all of your labor will be in vain. Eagles don't even hang out with chickens for fun. They eat chickens. They hunt chickens. Eagles they don't even eat chicken food for snack. Eagles have nothing at all to do with chickens. And I want to tell you real quick about this. Lee just texted me. I think I'm at 10 minutes and I have like 10 more slides. So let me know when I need to cut back. But I want to tell you real quick about this eagle and African-American history by the name of Septima Clark. Septima Clark, her parents were slaves, and she's known as the queen mother of the civil rights unit, the civil rights era, the queen of the sky. And she was working in a segregated school system as a principal. They had like 134 students and one teacher, one principal. She was making $35 a week. Her teacher was making $25 a week. Across the street was a school for children that were white. And that teacher had 3 students and was making $85 a week. And she's like, you know what? This is not right. And she tried to fight for equal pay. And she did not get it. And there was no community. There was no united in purpose. There was no community to support her because they didn't know. And so what she did was create what are known as citizenship schools. She says knowledge can empower marginalized groups in ways that formal legal equality couldn't. Education is the key to freedom, to liberty, to access. All of these DEI efforts that we're talking about, all of that is through knowledge, which can only be achieved when one eagle passes that down to another eaglet. She formed what was known as citizenship schools, and the goals for these schools, remember I told you the mindset, was to provide self-pride. You need to feel good about yourself. You are an eagle. This pride, this literacy, and a sense of one's own citizenship rights. She started this work. She says literacy means liberation. She stressed knowing that education was key to gaining political, economic, and social power. Through this work, she had 37 schools in the Sea Islands and South Carolina. Listen to this. These students who graduated from these schools would go on and create low-income housings, their own credit unions for their communities, nursing homes. They did this with knowledge and with education. Once empowered, they did what was right, not only for themselves, but for the entire community. She had over 10,000 teachers that trained throughout the South. By 1969, they had 700,000 African Americans that were registered to vote based upon this eagle who had vision, who hunted for what was right, to do what was right, and that is dedicated to Septima Clark. The reality is this: either you're gonna fly like an eagle or you're gonna eat like a chicken. There is no in between. For eagles, there is no in between. Eagles don't eat. They're not going to even be in the same coop with chickens. They're not going to emulate chicken behavior. They're not going to, it's one or the other, but as an eagle, you're not going to be able to do both. You've got to keep focusing on what's in front of you and conquering that and not being held back by those things in the past. You got to let that stuff go. Septima Clark said, I believe unconditionally and the ability of people to respond when they are told the truth. We need to be taught to study rather than to believe. Eagles are hunters. Teach them how to study, not just to assimilate and ingest what I'm feeding you. Teach them to inquire rather than just to affirm and agree. Eagles study, they inquire, This was the work of the Queen Mother of the Sky, Septima Clark. And let me tell you one other thing, and I know I'm running out of time. Just because it has wings and feathers does not mean that it is an eagle. I'm gonna tell you, eagles, they keep company, guess what, with other eagles. That is their circle. One of the few birds that will peck at an eagle is a crow. He will sit on the back and bite at its neck. The eagle doesn't respond. He didn't fight with the crow. He didn't waste his time or energy on the crow. The eagle simply opens its wings, flies higher in the sky, and the higher the eagle flies, the harder it is for the crow to even breathe. Eventually, the crow will fall back to earth due to a lack of oxygen. Y'all, eagles can fly higher than any other bird in the sky. And the higher you fly, the less oxygen it is. And I'm telling you, everybody can't fly at the altitude of an eagle. Listen, those crows that are coming for you, well, whoever that crow may be, whatever that crow issue may be, those crows coming for you can, listen, don't dignify some audiences with your time or your presence. There are some issues that you don't eat. Listen, when somebody is coming for you, trying to cause harm, I know it's not Sunday, but there's this proverb that says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. It didn't say the weapons would not be formed. It said they would not prosper. All you need to do is spread your wings and fly higher. Keep moving up. Keep going forward. Keep moving to new altitudes, doing new things with your life, with your career, with your motivation, with your inspiration, with your mind, with your gifts. Fly higher. They're not going to be able to survive at those high altitudes. Don't waste your time and energy on crows, not when you were born to be an eagle. Share one more queen eagle with you. And this queen eagle was named Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer, her parents were sharecroppers. Fannie Lou Hamer was a sharecropper. She's quoted as saying, I guess if I had any sense, I've been a little scared. But what was the point of being scared? The only thing they could do was kill me. And it kind of seemed like they've been trying to do that a little bit at a time since I could remember. Let me just give you a little tiny background into who Fannie Lou Hamer is and why I'm bringing her up as one of the queen eagles that cut the wind in the sky just by spreading her wings. Fannie Lou Hamer was a sharecropper. She quit school at the age of 12. On the plantation she worked, she was the only one who could read. And so she had different responsibilities. And she wanted to vote. At that time, they had this literacy test. You had to pass in order to vote. And because she wanted to vote, she was fired by her boss as a sharecropper. They made her husband continue to work until the harvest. And frustrated by these efforts, she wanted to learn more about these voting rights. And Fannie Lou Hamer, I mean, her life experiences. And when I'm telling you these crows that are coming for you, crows came for Fannie Lou Hamer just because she wanted to vote. There was a time when she went into the hospital to have a ulcer removed. And when they did the surgery, they removed her uterus on top of that. When they did this to a lot of African-American females, they called it like a forced hysterectomy. It was so common and so often happening to African-American females, they call it the Mississippi appendectomy. And I'm saying that she kept, even though this great harm was caused her, guess what? She flew higher. She adopted 2 children. Then she got on this bus trying to help register other people to vote. She was pulled over by the police because they said the bus was too yellow and was given a $100 fine. Guess what? She flew higher. She was at a bus station and sat at a counter reserved for white people. She was arrested, jailed. They beat her so bad that she had injuries that she would have for the rest of her life. They injured her kidneys and her legs. And I mean, but guess what? She kept flying higher. Forced to integrate schools, they said, you know what, we're not going to do it. So we know they're not going to have any public education. This was in Maryland as well as Mississippi. And when they closed schools, students received what was known as this sharecropper education. There was no public education, and the students that were not Black and had money would go to these private schools. And so Fannie Lou Hamer, knowing what was at risk, knowing that they had to do more than what they were doing just to get the vote, the right to vote, the right to have education. I want to share just this small clip. Oh gosh, I got 1 minute, so I'm not going to have time to share this clip.
Share the clip. Share, you're fine.
We're okay? Okay. All right, I'm going to share this short clip. I want you to see how powerful Fannie Lou Hamer was, and I want you to see what happened as a result of this, known as the Freedom Schools.
The testimony before the Credentials Committee, the FDP had a lineup of very different people. They had Rita Schwerner, the widow of Mickey, who had been killed in Neshoba County. They had Martin Luther King. Everybody knew King.
The seating of the delegation from the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party has political and moral significance far beyond the borders of Mississippi or the halls of this convention.
But the highlight of the testimony was that of Fannie Lou Hamer. The sharecropper who had been evicted from her plantation had come to symbolize the Mississippi movement.
Mr. Chairman, and to the Credentials Committee, it was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to the county courthouse in Indianola to try to register to become first-class citizens. We was met in Indianola by policemen.
The president, Lyndon Johnson, he's not afraid of Martin Luther King's testimony. He's afraid of Fannie Lou Hamer's testimony. And so he decides that the country should not see her testify live.
Johnson is in the White House, and he convened an impromptu press conference.
We'll return to this scene in Atlantic City, but now we switch to the White House and NBC's Robert Goralski.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
On this day, 9 months ago,
He did it knowing that they would break away, thinking he might announce who his choice of vice president was going to be. Instead, he gets up there and he announces, get this, he announces that it's 9 months to the day since Governor Connolly, who was there, was shot along with President Kennedy. So he announced a 9-month anniversary. Everybody's scratching their heads.
thank you very much.
And then he leaves. By that time, Fannie Lou Hamer's testimony was over. However, it backfired on Johnson because it became a story that she had been taken off television and in the news that night, and for days afterwards, they replayed her testimony.
I was carried to the county jail and put in the booking room. They left some of the people in the booking room and began to place us in cells.
She had Mississippi in her bones. Martin Luther King or the SNCC field secretaries, they couldn't do what Fannie Lou Hamer did. They couldn't be a sharecropper and express what it meant, right? And that's what Fannie Lou Hamer did.
And it wasn't too long before 3 white men came to my cell. One of these men was State Highway Patrol. He said, "We're going to make you wish you was dead."
Fannie Lou Hamer is known for saying, if I fall, I'll fall 5 feet 4 inches forward in the fight for freedom, but I am not backing off. She says, I've been tired for so long now. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we want to change. Fannie Lou Hamer was an eagle that understood what it meant to thrive outside of your comfort zone. One of the things about eagles, the uncomfortable comfort zone, is this: they prepare this nest for their eaglets, And then the older they get, when it's time for them to be prepared to fly, they take away some of the padding and they make that nest so uncomfortable that those eaglets don't want to be there. And what I'm saying for leadership, for those aspiring or those that are trying to get there, you have got to get in, you got to get out of your comfort zone and be uncomfortable with the status quo. You ought to be uncomfortable with academic achievement as it relates to African Americans, which is the lowest in every single group there is that exists. You should not be comfortable with that. That data, those stats should make you uncomfortable, so much so that you are motivated and passionate to do something different. And what Fannie Lou Hamer led were these freedom schools to liberate people from oppression using, guess what? Education. Education. She wanted to counter this sharecropper education. And I looked up the definition of sharecropper education, and it says, it's simply an education that has been designed for nothing other than second-class living that has been intentionally prescribed to poor people and Black people specifically. They needed some relief. They needed something to help liberate the minds from what they were given, which was a sharecropper education. She recruited all of these college students that would come to Mississippi. They called it the Freedom Summer. And they taught African students how to become their own actors, how to believe in themselves. They were teaching them math and literacy. They had nearly 40 freedom schools serving 2,500 students and their families and their grandparents. This is 2 minutes. I just want you to see what this looked like. I want you to know the power that you have, even if you take 3 weeks in the summer, design something that will provide additional academic empowerment tools to ensure student success in K-12, transitioning from K-12 to higher ed. This is what it looked like.
One of the most wonderful things about 1964 Mississippi summer were the freedom schools.
The state of Mississippi deliberately and systematically kept Black people uneducated and ignorant, and then turned around and made education a requirement in order to participate in the political process. We were able to do the freedom schools in the summer of 1964 because we had almost 1,000 students coming to the state of Mississippi, thus the human resources to actually, conduct classes.
We hope to find and develop and mold local leadership among the young people. We also hope to promote a better self-image among the local Negroes.
We would send out mass flyers and everything to the churches, telling people about the Freedom School, what the Freedom School was going to entail, the courses, the activities. We got the preachers involved, we got the kids involved.
Black people couldn't go to the library. It was for whites only. And so here they are, got their own library now. They would come excited to be exposed to the teaching and to browse the books.
In the public schools where I was in school, I had never heard of Dr. Seuss. It was at Freedom School where we actually not only read the story of the Cat in the Hat, but we acted it out. Having our lives enriched by these activities really made a huge difference in my life.
We taught African American history, civics, African culture, African dance. They were learning Black history, that they were reading books that had been written by Blacks that they'd never heard of.
How were slaves first introduced in America? As we saw back on this world map over here, America started picking up slaves along here and then bringing them back.
What we were trying to do that summer is get people to talk about their own lives, talk about good and bad, and talk about ways in which you could bring about change. I think that was very much the drive of the program.
They had a sense of being needed by something much bigger than themselves and a sense of being able to handle the problems that they were needed for. They did it by asking questions and by being encouraged to feel free to ask questions.
They were raring to go. We were just kind of like the catalyst. We were agents of information and agents of a different world. So, I mean, just the very fact that we were talking about a world that they didn't know or didn't have much experience with was exciting to them and also to us.
We set them up for the little children to come, and every day we'd have classrooms of adults, people 50, 60, and 70 years of age. The adults came to the Freedom School to learn, just like the little children.
What I'm telling you, when we talk about unity and purpose and working together as a community, where a school is not an island, where what we're talking about is developing an eagle eye to have the vision. And when you talk about student success, you can't, if you're not achieving what you want, the practices that you've been using aren't going to work. You've got to be able to have the vision to do something different that has not been done. You've got to have an eagle heart. Eagles, when they hunt, they don't give up until they get their prey. That's it. When they hunt, the hunt is not over until they have experienced success. You got to have the eagle heart where there is no compromise, where failure is not enough. Your failure is your springboard to that next level of success. And you got to have an eagle mindset that understands your responsibility as an eagle is to prepare these future eaglets to help them know who they are, the power in who they are, and to remind them, listen, I know what you've been told, but let me tell you, you were born of kings and queens of the sky. This is your history of kings, of legacy. You've got to be able in leadership to have an eagle eye, an eagle heart, and an eagle mindset. I'm almost finished. I know my time, I got 3 more slides. Eagles love the storm. Y'all, this work gets hard. And you're going to have these storms. Let me tell you about eagles. Eagles ride the wind of the storm to fly higher. When there's a storm, eagles fly into that. They don't run away from problems. They don't run and hide. Not Queen Eagle Fannie Lou Hamer. They run into the storm and they use those gusts to fly higher without expending as much energy. Eagles know how to take a bad circumstance because all of it will come together to work for the good, and they use that to lift themselves higher and the community. You can't run away from problems thinking they're going to go away. You've got to run into the storm and use that storm to teach you how to get to that next level. And I shared this already. No matter the obstacles, the eagle will not move his focus from his prey until he grabs it. Things are going to be thrown at you. Crows are going to come for it for you. You're going to miss, but you don't stop until those eaglets are trained, ready to fly and embrace who they are as kings and queens of the sky. And I'm preparing to close. A child cannot be taught by anyone who despises him, and a child cannot afford to be fooled. A quote by James Baldwin. Eagles
know how to train eaglets. Eagles are not going to keep the company of crows and chickens. They're not going to teach buzzard ways. Eagles have the mindset to train other eagles in identity, in self-love, in purpose, in passion, in the hunt. Ask questions, inquire. Don't stop with what I'm telling you. Find out for yourself. Learn how to fly by falling. Eagles will train other eagles because they love the eagle. They love the eagle identity. They know who they are. They are the kings of the sky. And I'm going to tell you who you are and understanding that you were born from kings and queens. You not only have a legacy, you have a responsibility. And with that, my name is Kimberly McLeod. Thank you for the opportunity, Lee Williams, to share and be with you all today. Thank you, Janelle Ingram and Karen Brown and Bridget Ivory and all of the people that participated in pulling this together. It has been an honor to be with you this morning. And thank you for forgiving me for the moments I went over your time ban. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear
Okay,
you.
okay. That was amazing. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming in, taking part in this today, and just really giving us that mindset of what Eagles do. And we're so grateful for you and all you do. So any questions for Dr. McLeod? Right. And another thing that I was telling people about was that you have been doing some research in student success. And I know that that's getting ready to come out and be publicly released. And so, you know, we're proud of you for being a part of TASB, but also that you're now really making your mark even bigger on the state level and providing a lot of the student success professionals in higher ed with the opportunities to be able to understand what those students are saying so that they can develop greater eagles to be able to fly as well. So just continue to soar yourself and continue to do all that you're doing to not only advance our community as African Americans and minorities, but even our community in the state and in the nation and in the world. So thank you and continue to do you.
Thank you.
Today has been wonderful. Oh, sorry. Okay, come on up. Yeah. Okay, Teresa. Yes, Jasmine. Okay, here you go. Oh, okay.
We would like to, our committee would like to thank our phenomenal speakers on today for this session. Dr. Christine Holt had to step out and we were able to give her her token of appreciation. And we would like to thank Dr. Melba Foster of Texas A&M University. Thank you for your words of wisdom and for your time today. On behalf of NATASB, we thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's all. Now back to Mr. Lee Williams.
Yeah, all right. Good, so you got the speakers out of the way. Okay, that's great. So again, thank you to all of our speakers for speaking again, and we'll get Dr. McLeod and Mr. Penix. Both have just been wonderful. All three of you guys have been wonderful. Dr. Foster as well. We really appreciate you for coming in and giving your insight as well. I got to listen online. Our executive board. So I just want to thank everybody a part of this today, TISD for, of course, providing the space for the meals and just always hosting us on so many different occasions. And so we're so grateful for that. And then to our symposium team under the direction of Ms. Janelle Ingram, and Miss Karen Brown was the co-chair. She's not here. Right. Okay. Her Mother's Day. Okay. But and then the entire committee. So I know Mr. Janelle, you coming up after me? Oh, okay. Because we had Karen Brown down here to come up. So Miss Bridget is on the committee. Bridget Ivy, right? Miss Teresa is here as well. I know Jasmine is here. Let me see who else. Who else? Kamala is here, Kayla, Alodia, and I think that's, and Jasmine, yeah. Is that all the committee? So congratulations on just putting together a phenomenal event today for us to be a part of and to enjoy and to really get some good information about. Colin Powell, the 65th Secretary of State, said, leadership is all about people. It's not about organizations. It's not about plans. It's not about strategies. It is all about people, motivating people to get the job done. You have to be people-centered. And so my encouragement to everybody is today is to be confident, very confident in our ability to serve others and consistent with our professional development opportunities. I saw a lot of people taking notes, taking pictures and things like that, because it's our hope that as we as Eagles continue to soar and fly, that we're not only able to impact our students, but we're also able to impact our colleagues who we work with in this community. And so use that to build your toolbox for even greater service to our community. And so without any further ado, Mrs. Rice, do you have anything else that you would like to add to this event? Oh, okay. Well, I don't want you to sit on the, yeah. Okay. Oh, no.
Thank you for asking. But the only thing I would love to just say.
My grandmother. No, my sister.
You can call me grandmother, that's good. Oh, no, we're brother and sister.
Yeah, we're brother and sister.
Yeah, he's my baby brother. And I have baby brothers already, but I added him to our baby brother. So we don't want to forget our happy hour, which will be on the second Friday, which is November the 11th at Zapata's. We don't want to forget that. We don't want to forget that on November the 29th, 2022 at 6:00 p.m., Derek McGarry in his office, he's going to talk to us about insurance, but also about getting ready for retirement. So I'm gonna tell you, I had somebody come to my office when I was young, and I didn't pay them any attention. And now I wish I had. So I just want to let y'all know that this is the best time to think about retirement when you're not even close to it. Like now I'm too close to it, but you need to think about it now so that you can be ready, because some of you may not be able to work the 44 years that it takes to get your whole retirement in Texas. I just want you to know, 44 years. And you may be sitting here thinking, well, I only got 15, 44. Or you may have 4. And that means you got 40 more. And so think about that. So please, let's give Derek the opportunity to get us ready so that we don't have to do 44. I got 46 and all, but we don't want to have to do that. So please pay attention to that. November the 29th, you'll be hearing more about it at 6:00 p.m. at Derek McGarry's office. And of course, one of the things that you all asked for was the opportunity to party together. Now, hey, I'm into the partying. So therefore, that is why happy hour, the second Fridays, November the 11th, which is Veterans Day, but it's the perfect time to party because you may know a veteran. And if you don't know a veteran, you can still party. It's this November the 11th at Zapata's from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So please don't forget. And the other thing that I want to say, since I had the opportunity to get up and talk, I'm just so excited, is that to thank you who came out today, because you got up out of your warm bed and you had heard the storm last night. You saw where people's houses were blown away, but you did not think that you were robbing yourself to come out here. And so we thank you for that. We want you to go back and tell everybody who had the opportunity to come, that didn't come, that you are now an Eagle. And you will be happy to carry them on your shoulders because you know what to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's it. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we recognized our committee. They were sitting back there and not wanting the spotlight, which is what people do sometimes. But I wanted to recognize them, make sure they stood, and that we acknowledge the work that they have done. So first of all, starting with our MC, who is Teresa Gray. I did not know she had it in her. But I told this committee when I started, I said, this is my last year being the chairman. So I'm looking and I'm training leaders to come for next year to take it to even higher levels. So they have done that. Then we have Miss Bridget Ivory. We also have Miss Camilla Goldston Reitner, who just got married. So congratulations. We also have Miss Jasmine Gill, who's representing Pleasant Grove. We have Karen Brown, who, as you heard, her mom is sick, so prayers for Karen. We also have Elodia Wittestatter, who's on the committee. We have Kayla Brown from TASD and Crystal Russell from TASD also on there. We also want to give a shout out to Barbara Sears, who is our wonderful person who comes and does things as far as PR. We also want to recognize Brittany Brooks, always coming through in a clutch. So I wanted to make those acknowledgements, and if anybody I left off, committee. Oh, Richard Hunter, our IT professional. Thank you so much, Richard. And again, thank you to all the speakers and everyone who came today. Also acknowledging TC students who got up on a Saturday for undergrads, that's unheard of. And also want to acknowledge Misty Garland, who was one of my mentor teachers at Texas Middle School, is an aspiring administrator, got up and came today. So thank you all.